So, you can hear me? Yeah, okay. So, I should say good afternoon now. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the session on airports at the part of the infrastructure pavilion. And I must thank iDAC for actually this entire initiative. Airports is one of the most interesting design problems, one of the most significant design opportunities. So we've got the international designer who's worked on this airport, who's going to speak to you, and also we've got the client who's going to talk to you about this airport. And it's one of the most prestigious and most interesting, innovative airports in the country. So it's a great opportunity. We also have, Mr. J. Subramanian, who will talk to you a little bit from the perspective of both experience in airports through a journey of now almost 50 years, Jay, okay, in the field. And just like Mr. Shah, both experienced people will be bringing a lot of perspective, okay, into this session. So I'm not going to take much time because there's lots that's going to happen as we move along. And I hope that you all enjoy the session. I'm going to first ask Martin Moore from Nordic to speak. And Martin is a senior architect with Nordic, Office of Architecture in Oslo. He is right now going to speak to you from Oslo. He has a comprehensive knowledge of all different phases of architecture and urban planning, with a particular emphasis on airport developments. Martin has been responsible for the layouts of the new Pier G at Stockholm International Airport Arlanda, due to open in 2024, and is currently project leader for the team of architects and planners who are preparing the new master plan for Arlanda, aiming at becoming the leading airport in Scandinavia with 70 million annual passengers. I've had the pleasure of working with him while developing the concept as master architect for the Noida airport, and I'm sure you all will enjoy this session from Martin. Over to you, Martin.
Most likely most familiar with you is the Hyderabad airport, which was opened back in 2008. It was a collaboration with Stoop in the early phases. To us, the mothership of all airports is the Oslo airport. It was started back in 1994, long before I was involved in airport planning. First phase was opened in 1997. Second phase, which you see on the picture, was opened in 2017. Another well-known project is the Istanbul International Airport, collaboration between Nordic, Infra and Bhatt in the early phases of the project. It's the very same team that we have been collaborating with on Noida Airport. The intention with this speech is to focus on architecture as a collaborative effort with examples from our recent work at the Noida International Airport. Give a short presentation of the Master Architects team of consultants and how we are organized. Then proceed with a brief design walkthrough of the terminal, before focusing on two examples on how cross-disciplinary thinking has provided new solutions for the terminal forecourt and a courtyard inside the building. Hopefully we'll also have sufficient time for a proper Q&A at the end of the session. Before doing so, I think I owe you an explanation for the picture in the background. It's of course graphically striking. That's not really the main intention. It's actually a picture from a movie I saw back when I was a student in Denmark in 97, 96. The picture is taken from a scene by Kurosawa in his detective movie High and Low from 1963. The people you see in the foreground are from the police department, and they just had a collective exchange of information relating to what appears to be an insoluble case. The structure of the meeting in this movie is exceptional. The investigators, they're working in pairs, each address extremely small and fragmentary topics. Then the chief police officers, how they sort of work with a team to orchestrate all the information, all the bits and parts, and make it, try to make it fit into a bigger picture. I think it's really a learning piece. Nothing is neglected. Everyone is treated with respect. Our team for Noida Airport is characterized by a combination of international experts working hand in glove with leading Indian practices. We had top international partners involved, and these were combined with a very solid group of local partners that were sort of handpicked throughout that PQ process. The combined team represents an architectural and engineering capacity of some 9,000 employees worldwide, with 15 companies in total. The goal was really to make this entity form as one team instead of several teams. It was a really challenging task, so to speak, but we very early found out that we need to break down this task into 3 geographical areas, being the terminal, land side and the air side. Each area was staffed with a dedicated cross-disciplinary team of experts representing people from all the different companies involved. And these again were sort of supported by a shared pool of expertise and management, and also a project board. And I think what is particular about this project board is that it had representatives from all the various firms involved, and it was not only giving guidelines on financial issues or management issues, but also helping in the process of reviewing and discussing how the progress of the actual design development went. Work was undertaken during COVID lockdown with a competition startup back in 2020, May 2020, and final delivery of tender documentation December 21. This was a very challenging timeline to work with, and I think also the fact that the team was widespread, basically around the globe, was a major challenge, but also something that sort of initiated a new way of working and collaborating through teams, through cloud-based SharePoints, and very important BIM 60 as a common tool for everyone involved. At one point we had staff working basically around the clock, all around the globe, sort of 24-hour continuous operation. Super stressful to be leading that process, but also very efficient, very interesting. I think really the global lockdown stressed the importance of the collaborative approach that we were striving for, and how everyone needed to understand their place in the process, and also responsibility for the process, and how everyone should be treated with respect and trust, and how important clear communication is. As you may also be aware of, the client team is a combination of Swiss and Indian expertise and leadership. They gave us a challenge, was to provide them with an airport that combines Swiss efficiency and Indian hospitality. I don't know, this sounds maybe like a contradiction in term, and it was a super important task early on to agree and define what this meant for the architectural team, the planning team, in terms of planning and architecture, so that it became a common goal, not a very sort of abstract kind of thesis. Together we define a set of guiding principles for the terminal design, and also a set of rules for how to achieve this. My British colleagues always say that the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so I think maybe rather than explaining too much about the process, I'd like to present some pictures showing the development of the airport, like a design walkthrough, so to speak. The first picture is showing it's an aerial view showing phase 1 of the project with approximately 12 million passenger capacity. Second picture is showing the full extent of the airport, phase 2 at least. I mean, the full extent of the master plan goes beyond this, but phase 2 is approximately 30 million passengers a year. What you see is basically that it's the same figure, just mirrored. This is a picture showing the approach road from the Yamuna highway day, also at night, showing how the light is sort of playing and working with a tensile fabric on top of the roof. It's a picture showing how passengers approach the airport from the arrivals curb and parking facilities through the parkscape. This is the forecourt. Forecourt is something I'll come back to a bit later. Super important element in the design of the airport. It's inspired by Hyderabad Airport, where we gained a lot of experience on Indian forecourts. Hopefully, it's going to provide the passengers with a very sort of generous experience and a sense of India and a sense of a beautiful state of Uttar Pradesh. This is a picture from the check-in hall, again working with the very same sort of earthy tone materials, resembling the great forts of Agra and Delhi, also vernacular architecture and countryside in Uttar Pradesh. This is the courtyard, internal courtyard providing fresh air to the surrounding commercial areas, and also a very important part of the passenger experience walking through the terminal, while at the same time it's also doubling as an air intake for the main air handling units that are immediately underneath. I'll come back to that a bit later. This airside view from the apron showing how the airport in phase 1 appears from the planes as you're approaching the building. Finally, a picture of how the courtyards can be opened to the public and used in combination with the standard interior spaces in that departure hall. Before closing the speech and opening up for the Q&A session, I'd just like to give you 2 examples of how the team has worked on a sort of collaborative basis. One is related to the forecourt and how to get rid of that curb, the traffic machine blocking the terminal building. The other one is related to the courtyard building, which is basically the heart and lung of the terminal building. So this here is a vision for how we wanted the architecture and the experience of the forecourt to be. This was mainly architecturally driven. One of the key elements that we were discussing with the client was the traffic machine, if it was possible to distribute this in a different way. and we got support for that idea by the client, but in order to convince ourselves and them, we had to do a miniature study together with our traffic planners from NACO, but also our structural engineers in providing alternative schemes or backup plan in case they want to build the curb at a later stage. The other example discuss or show is basically related to the courtyard. And funny enough, the courtyard is not architecturally driven, even though it's a very sort of, I would say, gives character and also quality to the building. It was initiated by our sustainability engineers, USD, and their MEP planners, same firm, and was a ingenious way to solve problem of getting air into such a large and deep building, such a complex program. At the same time, provides, what shall I say, it's fantastic quality to the building, quality to the commercial spaces, and also character. I think this is, I'll stop with this picture. It's most likely going to be one of the more attractive airport spaces you'll find anywhere. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was a very well articulated presentation on the new terminal building at Noida. The project is just being tendered. We have in the latest session today Ashwini Thorat, who's going to speak to us from the client side. Pardon? Yeah. So, if any of y'all have any questions for Martin, please, ask. I want to tell you that you must have seen in this presentation that there are two innovations in this airport, and I think during the course of this, session today, we will take you through perhaps several innovations in airports. And this airport that you're being shown today is the airport which is currently on the design table. This airport is an airport where there's been a reflection on all the other airport projects that have been there, not just in India, but across the world. You have seen in Martin's presentation that their team has executed projects just completed the Istanbul airport some time ago, and they're doing airports globally. And this is not their first project in India. They've done the Hyderabad International Airport in India. They've worked on the airport terminal at Goa, and now they're working on the airport at Noida. So it's a team that comes with considerable experience of both Indian conditions and also global projects. And as Martin also explained to you all, it's not just one person or one practice. An airport requires to learn how to work collaboratively. Any questions from the audience? I have several questions, so I summarize things, and then if you all have any questions, please. This is an opportunity to speak to. Yes, sir.
I'm really very fascinated to see the design, though I really gone through it earlier also. But one thing which is happening is that, in this particular airport is that from centrally air condition to alternative ways of non-conventional air cooling system, which I think that is what is being adopted here, and more sustainable. That's what even in the courtyard, which he has expressed, and how the wind and other things are flowing. So that's, I'm very impressed that somebody has taken initiative globally to transform architecture which is for the people and for the purpose here in India as per the climatical condition. That's what I think that I would like Martin, if we can give more light onto this and make us understand about this sustainable aspect of ventilation, air conditioning, cooling system, and taking it further.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. Martin, over to you. I knew this question was coming. please talk a little more about the courtyard, ventilation system and rationale.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's very central to the concept of this airport. I'm not a MEP planner, so I can't explain all the bits and details. But really, we had a very good collaboration with Urban Design Systems in London. They had a architect. He's actually trained as an architect. Kartikeya Raiput. He's from India. Studied in Delhi, also at the AA in London. And what we did quite early in the project was to define different zones in the buildings that would have different appropriate temperature zones inside the building, and then explored the possibility of using that courtyard not only for getting air from above where it's clean directly into the aircraft units which are directly underneath, but also to naturally ventilate part of the building through that courtyard. And I mean, it requires a almost independent presentation, and Kartik is going to give a presentation at the PTE in London on this particular theme. But one of the things that we discussed in depth and over quite a few meetings with the client, Yamuna River Development, was to sort of decide what was acceptable and how often could that courtyard be used. And what we saw was that the courtyard, the use of the courtyard, because of the shading and the orientation of the space, would be much more extensive than what we thought initially, because it coincides with the peaks of the airport, the morning peak and the afternoon peak, and evening peak. So it has not only it's not only important for passenger experience, but it's also important for the natural ventilation of the commercial spaces around, and also the waiting areas in the departure hall. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think, Martin, as you mentioned, this particular answer, it's a kind of a thesis subject in itself, because it's really an evolution of thought, okay, in how you can make a sustainable terminal building. And we talk about making airports that are sustainable. Ashwini will speak a little bit about Bangalore Airport as well, where you're trying to make a garden in an airport and an airport for the garden city. But what we have kind of achieved in the Noida terminal so far, and I hope proof of the pudding is in the eating, as you said. We got to build it, and and then we got to experience it. And what we've really experienced there is that we are actually going to experience nature firsthand. So you're going to touch nature. It's not there to decorate your airport or produce a green wall for you. You actually are going to feel a little bit of outdoors space. So it's a question of comfort as much as it's an environmental strategy. It's a breakout space. It's a great innovation. Martin, can you speak a little bit about the curb side? I don't think everyone got this idea about the elimination of the curb, and that's a very important innovation as well, in this airport.
Yeah, because the curb, I mean, at least when I started working with airports, it was sort of a general rule that once you passed a 6 million capacity, you needed multi-story curb outside the building. And what we did early on in the competition, and something that we discussed also during the workshops we had directly with the client during the competition, was the possibility of taking out that traffic machine, because it's still there. The section is just done differently, so that you have the departure curb at grade, and then you have a underpass, and then you get to the arrivals curb, and also to the parking facilities. What we did was also to divert the traffic for arriving passengers away from the front of the building, this was super important in order to achieve this almost urban space that you have in front of the terminal building, which was also part of when you read the concession agreement that was done for the airport. It was I can't remember the exact sentence, but they required our client to build a space that could give something back to Uttar Pradesh and to the neighborhood. So we basically combined lots of these functions in that forecourt area, and I think it's a evolution away from this car-based terminal. But it also required, as we said, a study of the model split of the airport and also forecasting for how landside traffic would be in the future.
So I think for those who've not kind of experienced the design of airports but have been passengers at airports, you would know that in larger scale airports there are twin level, for departure and for arrival there are two different levels, and in a way these form kind of barriers to creating a kind of a holistic urban space. So actually in this terminal what you've seen is this in such an inviting entrance plaza, and this kind of invitation, okay, is something that is carried through right across the terminal. So it's not just at the entry, it's at the heart of the terminal, and that's why you land in that courtyard, which is all about, this kind of integration between nature, movement, etc. And all this has environmental rationale. It also has business rationale, because there's a client sitting here who's going to speak to you about it, hopefully in the next session. One last thing, Martin, before I ask the next speaker, I would like you to dwell a little bit about collaboration. This is a design done, a design competition held at the time of COVID, and between some of the leading architects in the world, integrated with your team you had a team of 15 people bidding, Indians and international parties, etc., and then there were at least 3 such teams eventually vying for the final spot. So it was a very interesting process of collaborating and also competing, while winning the project. And I think between the client who's sitting here and the designer, it'll be nice to have a little reflection on how you conducted that entire process and through times of COVID. Martin, this is not a question for now. You're going to be here for the panel discussion. I'm going to just leave this thought with everyone, and I'd like you to talk about it when we come online.
Okay.
Is there any more questions for Martin? Because we started late and I want to go through all the other presentations on time. I have a flight to catch myself, so I'm going to rush everybody through all their presentation to see that they're on time. Any other questions? No? We'll bring a lot of questions to the table in the panel discussion because Martin is joining in then. So if there's any question you all have on this presentation, please note it down and raise it when the panel discussion starts. Now I think we'll go to the next part of the session. Thank you very much, Martin, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We're going to have a case study now from Charanjit Singh Shah, the head of Creative Group. Professor Charanjit Singh Shah is an architect, planner, an infrastructure expert with 5 decades of practice. He is an author, scholar, educationist, teacher, an art and architecture critic, practicing and creating sustainable and green architecture. His works speak of his contribution beyond just architecture into development of infrastructure projects like airports, metros, railway stations, transit-oriented development, intermodal hubs, and basically he's interested in creating sustainable, walkable, cyclable neighborhoods and such kind of initiatives in his planning of his various projects. Professor Shah has also successfully initiated the Smart Habitat Foundation, a center of excellence in pursuit of art and architecture, urban planning, transport and infrastructure, a platform where academicians and practitioners come together to interact in form of a serious dialogue, bridging the gap between academics and the practical applications. So for the next 25 minutes, I request Charanjit Shah to take us through this journey. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. I know, after such a lovely presentation of Jewel Airport, we're becoming more vibrant. I started my practice about 52 years back. Lastly, for 20 odd years, I am into aviation, transportation, all these projects put together, land ports and intermodal hubs. This is the project. This is Kartarpur Corridor. During the journey of my practice, initially as a freelance, then when you came to the airports, the global intervention, the global empowerment, the global learning, many more things came in. And, my travel was through technology, understanding various other things put together. But lately I have found that what I miss is that the architecture which was creating New India, probably we're missing the 3 Ps. Today's deliberation, I would put it on the 3 Ps, the place, purpose, and the people. How the architecture can belong to me, and I say this is belonging next to the place and people. And I start adoring it. And that is what my presentation of today would be. Next. Yeah. This is how for the last 52 years been doing practice. Sustainable. Oh, sorry. This is me. I generally make a statement that a built mass of brick and concrete should not be a dead mass. Let's see that it breathes, is embodied with nature, and we start putting life into architecture. How do you do that? That probably is the passive ways of doing architecture. My son Gurpreet, who is heading all this for the last now more than 20 years into the aviation and other infrastructure projects. We started journey from a plain architect, making a terminal building, and then maybe the land side, but not looking into the air side. But now I can say that very proudly that we are one of the Indian consultants who are doing A to Z in architecture and engineering in aviation and transportation. I'll just make a journey towards the passive ways of architecture in the terms of creating sustainable architecture in a mega project like an airport. How do you place the building, the envelope of the building, the mutual shading, all that, maximizing daylight and minimizing heat gain into the building. How do you put a concept of that nature where I stimulate the building as a terminal building along the oscillation of the sun and see that in the hot and dry climate, I do not get the glared west sun, I get a shaded south sun and get most of the non-glared, not sunlight. So that is what, beside the active ways of making intelligent building management system and put all those things put together, these are the achievements of Creative Group. Now we are involved in completed more than 48 airports, 32 railway stations we're working. We're working on about 12 seaports and land ports. Beside that, we have about 160 odd projects, institutional, convention facilities, housing and other IITs and IIMs, where the campuses and other projects. So this is what we globally do and rendered. The 7 airports, 2 helipads, and 3 other projects in around in Africa, in Belgrade, and now we also in the Turkestan, near Russia. So Gambia, Rwanda, and all these projects also, we're very fortunate that we have extended our arms along in other parts of the country as well. This is my DMRC, metro stations, last mile connectivity, understanding all those things put together, like Ahmedabad Gandhinagar metro connectivity, getting hold of the intermodality, all those possibilities have been explored by us. Now we'll focus on the aviation, the airports. We'll just touch upon these few ones. Gabon, again a greenfield airport, where we were able to understand everything, airside, city side, land side, terminal building, understanding the ATC tower, the Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 lighting, the airspace conflict. All those are now in the bigger envelope of coming into a greenfield airport where you're talking about master plan, feasibility studies, return on money. All possibilities are being taken care of, and that is what we are involved into Gabon Airport. This is Belgrade, where again extension of the Belgrade we were involved into, and we tried to see that the existing parameters along with the new, how the interface and other engineering could be achieved. So this is what we did this, and this is Ghan. Again, a greenfield where we are into all the possibilities of making a terminal, making a runway, all those things we have been creating there in Ghana as well. The terminal. This is one of the largest facility, the master plan of Nijgarh Airport, Nepal, which I feel very proud. Being a Indian company, bidded with the global players and able to get this work as an Indian company in an airport, which is about 20,000 hectares of land with 4 runways, with a terrain, mountainous terrain, a difference about 20 meters, practically 10 meters each in the 4 runways. And how do you create that sort of master plan where there is so much of difference between the runways and you again connect commonality with the terminal building? So all this, we started looking at it. This is substituting like Jewar to Delhi and similarly Kathmandu to Nijgarh, which is about an hour from Kathmandu. And mind it, here the air route is only limited from Gorakhpur, from India. A very thin, like a corridor, and we need to see how the airspace works for the various airports in Nepal. That was also very challenging. So we have the consultants who worked on this along with us for creating an airspace conflict. All those things we try to do here in this. Make basic principles. I'm not going into all these things put together, but this is what, with 4 runways, with 2 runways on one this side, another side, and the terminal building in between, we try to put along with the difference of about 10 meters between one runway to another runway. So this is, I feel very proud, and this is the 4 runway master plan, 20,000 hectares. The master plan has been now approved. We're working on to the DPR, the detailed project report. We're working on all the, like a GA drawings and everything put together for taking it further. So this is what the interiors, other 6 we are trying to adopt, like, the 3 Ps, place, people, and purpose. So towards the art form, to the geometry, to other things put together, that is how we try to stimulate things and put the art form into the architecture of the airport. This is how, wide open areas of common public plazas within, and we try to do all this and putting the art of the Buddhist art, the Hindu architecture, and all those put together into the terminal building. This is Kavarati, again a helipad, which we are doing. You know, I'm just trying to showcase that now is the time where possibly in India we have a lot of works. India is in new making, and particularly in infrastructure, transportation, we have so much of things to explore, possibly endless, beyond imagination, and also possibly we need to understand, convert our architecture, which is beyond architecture, and we make a team, a gulf of people put together, and we say yes. It's like a big teamwork, like as in Java, there are about 12 consortium, big players putting together. Why not we in India also club together and create India by Indians, and we feel proud of. So that is what is, I feel, and this is what we have done here in Lakshadweep, all this. This is from where I started. Nandita is here. We had a common journey from 2005. This was a global competition. We won this, a project of 2,500 crore, extension of runway on the Adhai River, all this with, it was, first only a domestic terminal, then through the interaction between the client, the architect, understand how to dig up area within no areas. That is what we tried, and we could place a 4 million international terminal of about 58,000 square meters, domestic terminal of 65,000 square meters. Then the metro came. This is the first intermodal hub in India where we have 4 transports connected: surface, railways, metros, and the airways. So that is what I learned here, the technology. Because here we have the largest cantilever in any of the airports, which is 80 feet, 25 meters. This is, you can see this. And we were the first one to bend half a meter pipe, 16 mm thick, here in India. These were some of the possibilities which we were globally learning in the engineering innovation at that time. Now I think we can do indigenously here in India as well. We did the box section girders in the flyover, thinnest 400 mm with 80 mm baffles, hollow section, steam cured, first time in India in this terminal building. This is how metro, international, domestic, railways, bus stand, interconnected, all put together with about 1.5 kilometers with 40 vocalators. This is how the connectivity was done here. This is the metro station. This is the inspired shape from where we started the terminal. Wings of the bird, and then try to create with the form and the functionality put together a H-shaped building with a green spine inside, and that is how you can see this. These are all sustainable elements which we talk about, the northeast, the lowest, southwest, the highest. Then we see that glare-free sun gets into the north and south shaded, because I have a 24 meters cantilever on the south, and that you see the section outside car park also is like conduction, radiation and convection, so that there is no heat transform into my build form, even from the surroundings. So all these things we try to create even on a larger project. You see the section, see the sun movement. No glared sun ever goes inside my terminal building. So once I am practically, frame out my building in a manner, stimulate the building so that there is no glared sun which actually penetrates. So these are certain elements which even the green side, car park, again the green surface, So how construction, brownfield, very difficult project where, construction is practically very, very difficult. Nandita knows how all these, every day we were on an alarm, 24/7, we never have a sleep, and such a large project completed in 4 years was really a challenge, and I think this is what Airport Authority achieved at that time, making an international facility of this nature. How V-shaped columns, all this, we try to, a smaller one, a Raipur, at that stage, as an architect, you feel complexity is the real iconic and dynamic architecture. But that is what we tried there. Yeah. So this is what is Raipur. Well, you see the parking, all green parking, with all polypropylene paver blocks, no hard surface. This is how we did this Raipur. Even tried to put in my water management, energy management, tried to put near to the net zero. All these factors we tried. Complex structure, very difficult to make, but we're able to create this there. Local art, Bastar art, water body, other things put together. So they try to put life into the dead mass. So this is Vadodara, a very simplistic, dynamic simplicity of Vadodara Airport. Even very cost effective, without any false ceiling. Again, the same principles. Envelope of the building, hollow blocks, double glass, double layered calzip roofing, so that the envelope is protected and maximizing daylight and minimizing heat gain. This is how the skin of the airports are being considered. Now, this is how it was inaugurated by Narendra Modi ji, and this is how the food court and other works. This is the latest. About 6 months back, we finished Agartala. Again, a very simple form, but again taking a lead from the various elements, local elements, bamboo, art, and other features into it. Again, the green elements of the tree. That is how we try to do this. The bamboo and all these put together. And these are all actual pictures. You see this, see that. So this is how the planning, everything was. I've been told to finish with another 5 minutes. I'll just finish it. So these are the, now, there was a shift in our mind that, when we're doing it, why not? This is Bhubaneswar. Bhubaneswar is Jagannath Puri. Can I make a chariot where the terminal by itself speaks of the Jagannath? And once I entered there, I said, oh, Jagannath. So that is what the Konark wheel, the various temple motifs we tried to put here. All this, taking a lead from the art form, this, and this is the all motifs which are probably taking from the temple architecture. This is Varanasi, a city, Ganges. So it's a flute shape, a flow of Ganges we tried to put in here, and that is how from the ghat to the boat, various elements, fluidity of the river, this is the plan, and then how the whole thing works. It's a 2-level airport, and this is how. See this, I just want to impress upon various elements like a boat in the false ceiling, Sanskrit shlokas written on that, so that it is like belonging to the place, the silk sari. This is Turkmenistan, where recently we got this project and we're doing the master planning and other things there. This is, Dr. S.S. Bhatti. I just put it that, because I am involved for the last 52 years in sustainability, I'm very proud that he was tempted to call me as Patrick Gatz of India. So that is what I just wanted to express upon. This is what Smart Habitat Foundation, which we are into. These are some of the books which I have authored, and this is in redefining Indian sustainable smart cities, which I actually, had a meeting with even Narendra Modi ji for creating sustainable Indian architecture and other books on architecture. So probably on all our projects now, we are into the net zero, try to be net zero energy, water, and solid waste management, even sometimes beyond net zero. So that probably in case we are able to create any human settlement which is beyond net zero, we need not import anything from outside. That is what is required to be done. And I had a meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister talking about the sustainable and smart township and we had a lot of debate on various issues. This is my office. We work and we have plus about 150 odd people working on various projects. And this is A plus D, which was dedicated to my 50 years of legacy, a 300-page magazine totally. Similarly, another magazine, Grades. And this is the complete philosophy of architecture which we adopt is nature is life, life is nature. Let's see that we adore nature, try to insert nature within our build form and create an architecture which has soul in it. So that is what it's all about. And thank you very much for patient listening. And that is what I really look upon. This is Kartarpur corridors, sky view. Thank you very much.
So I thank Mr. Charanjit Singh Shah for a presentation of his practice, and I now request Mr. Yohei Kokubu of Toto India to kindly felicitate him for his work. And after that, Mr. Yohei Kokubu, I hope I pronounced it correctly, will make a small presentation. Sorry, just a minute. Mr. Toto India Industries, Mr. Furuya Masahito, who is the Deputy General Manager Sales, will now felicitate Mr. Charanjit Singh Shah of Creative Group. And Mr. Furuya Masahito will make a 5-minute presentation on the Toto Group afterwards.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm Furuya from Toto. So we are Toto is a Japanese company founded 1917. Yeah. So in India, we have been active since 2011. Basically. So today, so we have no time to explain well. So for only 5 minutes. Yeah. So let me explain our company and products information briefly. So thanks to all of you, so we have delivered our products to many public buildings, both in Japan, so both in India also. So let's start here with some recent project reference in Japan. This is a Tokyo Midtown Hibiya in Tokyo. So the restaurant has an field interior with an awareness of adult social gatherings. the standing corner is designed so that user will not worry about being watched by people next to them. Please look to me. So the touchless products is now the common in Japan. Touchless faucet, touchless urinary sensor, and hand dryer. The next building is the Ginza 6 building. Do you know Ginza? So Ginza is the most famous shopping area in Japan. Yes. Yes. It is designed with people's comfort in mind. So here are project reference in India. As you know, this is a dissect is here as a world world center. So you can find out our product easily. So we are very happy to take part in this event. So already installed so many auto faucet and some our product. Please check carefully from now on. Yeah. And Oberoi Mall also. Oberoi Hotel. Yes. This is a Mumbai International Airport. Yes. Most of previous airport for India. Terminal 2 with all total product installed. Okay, Godrej BKC. Yes. Okay. So what makes for a comfortable public restroom? Toto has been considering public restroom designs for many years, continually engaging in research and development that aims at bringing more comfort to more people. Okay. History of public toilet is very long of Toto, giving latest technology to elderly, disabled, and mankind. Our concept. Okay. Sorry. Our concepts are based on 5 perspectives: cleanliness, comfort, universal design, earth-friend, service ability. First is the cleanness. Okay. From the time to you enter a restroom until you leave, Toto's touchless products perform every action necessary without direct physical contact. We also believe in the importance of equipment that keeps itself as clean as possible with our various cleaning techniques. Next is comfort. Nowadays, it is changing from a place where people just go to the toilet to a place where people can fresh up and relax. Okay. The third perspective is universal design, an area where Toto is particularly strong. The fourth perspective is force friendliness. Touchless faucet less water and self-generated power for operation. Sorry. The final aspect is service ability. Touchless urinal for more hygiene and odorless in restroom. So, well, we are participating in the iDAC event so that as many people as possible can experience our automatic faucets. Our booth is located at the back of the booth. Please come visit please come and visit us. Okay. Touchless and ecology and quality. This is our strongest point. Please feel our products and spirits. We have a big confidence to give you more comfortable and satisfaction. So all techniques faucet with cutting edge design. We have so many type of faucet. Okay, above the new design. Touchless faucet is multiple size fitted all type of lavatory. Urinary sensor also, hand dryer also. So, thank you for listening my presentation. So please visit us. Our booth is located back of the booth. Thank you so much.
I think we have to thank Toto because they've done a lot of work at airports, and it's very good of them to be sponsoring this pavilion. Thank you very much for your presentation. We go on to the next speaker, and we have an interesting speaker here, Nandita Bhatt. I've been on a panel with her before, and she's going to bring you, she's a designer working with Airport Authority of India. But now she's moved into the operations part of airports. She's speaking to you from the client side, from the government side. And it'll be very interesting in the next 10 minutes or so that she's going to be speaking to you to get a perspective from the other side, the client side, about what the status of airports are in India. Over to you, Nandita. Look forward to your presentation.
I prefer to be on the floor all the time. Namaskar. Okay, that's nice. Thank you. Namaskar. Nandita Bhatt. I'm at present working as the airport director at Udaipur Airport. It's always lovely to be back to this city, so thanks to iDAC. I've graduated from JJ's and I've post-graduated from SPA in landscape. I have done my aviation management with ICAO ACI, and I hold a designation called International Airport Professional. Coming to this forum on a very different perspective, I'm really very honored to be speaking where Charanjit Shah is there. And when he spoke Chennai was a project which I was handling from the Airport Authority side, and he was doing the designing for us. Well, right now I'm very grateful that everybody's sitting here very peacefully and coming in between the plate, as they say. Had this been the airport, believe me, they would all have been on my head for a delayed flight. And that is where the whole perspective comes with the public when an airport operator operates. So for us, efficiency is just not airlines, it's also how you have people at your airport. And be happy to be even sitting there and enjoying when there are delayed flights. So my subject when I say is that airport is an integrated operational center. Please remember, as designers, we always think it's only the people who are going to be using the terminals. But per se, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. And also, it's a versatile, user-oriented business model. It's because of lately we talk sustainability with every project that we pick. Please remember, airports are huge white elephants. They're very expensive propositions to make, not just the buildings, but the airside operations that we make. So asking any one of you, or how many of you actually know that airports are licensed to work? Only just one that I see there, maybe is the aviation person. Another two, of course, you've been working on the field. But that's what I want to get into the public eye when I stand here today. Please remember, next time when you walk in at the airport and there is a little problem, please be accommodating with us. It's never that we don't want to create a customer experience, but there are many more regulations which sit on our heads and we need to follow them is only for one thing, and that is the safety of the passengers. We need to be ensuring that you all fly out safe to your loved ones and land as safely wherever that you are proceeding to. So next time if you are delayed or there is any other problem, have little patience, come to our grievances cell, we'll resolve them, but have patience with us to run through, please. Okay, I'm not wearing my specs, so I hope this will move. Sony, is this on? If I can know. Or I have to be there to do it. Are you sure? It is now? Okay. So when we say airports are the symbols of the places that they serve, remember we are the landmarks of the very particular place that we land on. And I'm very glad when I saw when Shah ji showed Bhubaneswar for a change. Now, that's what we need to do when it comes to India. We run too much on the name of modern architecture and talk all the time glass and steel. And probably we've forgotten our own heritage and our own elements that would come into the airports. And the reason I say this is going to come into my next slide is why we just don't want everything that needs to be just glass and steel that needs to be working on. Please remember, we are the landmarks. We want them to be perfect, because when we have anybody coming from abroad or any passenger taking any travel, we are the people who create memories at the very first point for them. So if you're happy at the airport, believe me, your trip is going to be the happiest. And if you get even a little irritated there, you're going to carry that on your mind for the very long time on your head. Okay, so yes, airports are designed for everyone. This is something that you need to remember when it comes to universal design. Now that's talking from the passenger perspective. You have all the kind of age group that will be walking in, from an infant to a senior citizen, to people who are injured. We even do ambulance, we even do passengers who are unwell. So we have to keep the complete design into the mind. But at the same time, now come to the other side. So I'm going to now talk of the perspective of when you design, there are so many people working. I request all architects when we design to remember you're creating offices for them. So the kind of space that you need to be creating for them for their office is equally important, because that time they are the customers for you. Creating an experience for them to work at the airport. It's a very high pressurized job. We work 24/7, and believe me, we can't stop for a minute. Not even a minute, rather, I'll say not even a second. So whenever we are designing, we always tell the person who's onto that board and sheet is to remember what are the kind of people who work in the organizations. There are airlines, there are immigrations, there are customs, there is security, and then there are the airport operator officials who are there. So you need to be sure what are the parameters that the regulator has for airports, and that is the Director General of Civil Aviation and Bureau of Security. Believe me, if we fault even with one, you need to be shutting your airport the very next day and your license is taken off. So that is where the whole essence comes when we design. But the field has got so oriented to be working only towards creating customer experience that we forget that there is a whole generation which is working there, gets stressed if they don't get the kind of parameters to work with. So when you're designing from the operator perspective, please remember, we need a lot of queuing space for people. When you're checking in, what is the kind of the length and the breadth that we are able to give them as simple? Or a hall which has got double height or triple height or whatever that you mind to give, it should not be claustrophobic with people walking in. And when you put sculptures and other, elements, remember there's one most important element which should not get missed. Can anyone guess that out? Come on, I think there are a lot of youngsters and students here. What is the first thing that you'll believe to see at the airport? Especially if you're first-time flyers. None. Signages. Wayfinding communication. That's one thing as an operator we find it very difficult if it's missing and it's not appropriately placed and not the appropriate size. I always say our signages should never get hidden when it comes to the other elements which are going to be coming inside the building. Because when you're a first-time traveler, the only flow that you will understand is with those signages. And if you're the last-minute traveler rushing to catch your flight before the pilot says the door is shut, believe me, it's only your signages. That's the time you're really not concerned what's happening around you. So that's one of the very important things that we talk of. We have new rules which have walked in when it comes to the universal design, and that's specifically for the people who are the passengers with reduced mobility. So now the design elements that come into do is with your flooring and all your signages which should have braille, which should have sound and audio, which can be taken depending on the kind of disability a passenger has. So please remember, these are some of the elements which happen, which are not there many a times. They get missed because we are nowadays creating larger than life experiences for passengers to enjoy terminals. In fact, airport terminals are no more the factor of just traveling throughout. They become destination into themselves. Many airports abroad actually give you a holiday to come and spend for 2 days, like Singapore Changi. You can actually book a holiday with their airport, go and stay at the airport, enjoy the complete airport, and travel it out. So these are some of the points which I believe are going to be from the other perspective, which you need to be taking care of when you design. So what does airport operator have to do all the time? We need to be working on the operational efficiency. So basically we provide all the facilities which are used by other agencies. So please remember, all the maintenance is with us. The only thing we do is give to the airlines is probably counter and their softwares to work on. But all the other facilities are from the operator's side. The only thing that they do is they have the ground handling, and that is their time paraphernalia to be done with aircraft. But all the facility for operational efficiency inside the building is by us. So comes the role when it comes to the lighting, how your counters are placed. How can you have the self-check-in, which is the latest, which is walking in, and not have too many people that you'll be talking to. So that's going to be the latest trend in the aviation, which is going to be coming up soon. So you need to be updated with technologies when you design to know that what are those elements that you need to get in. And when I say versatile, I think we were one industry who adapted even to the pandemic most fastest to believe, to ensure you can all get back to the travel back soon. So touchless or whatever the other elements are walking in. So be prepared. Our terminals should be expandable flexibly when it comes to a particular zone. I should be able to increase the space in security hold zones if my flight gets delayed, and so is in the check-in. So that's the kind of terminal and the spaces is what we are looking at now, rather than just designated them strictly as check-in areas or security hold areas. Talking of the building management, of course, Shahji said that there are a lot of technology which is coming up and we need to be updated. And we need a central point walking in now. So when you have a common central operational center role, then you know that your civil, your electrical, your HVACs, and the other elements which run through CCTVs, security systems, everything should be sitting into one common space, and that should be linked with your stakeholders. If you don't do that, then and you add these technologies in the later part of your design, it's going to be like a patchwork that we work through for. So when you talk of the perspective and of airport operator, it would be very nice when designers design is that they should actually come to the user department first to understand how they're going to be functioning and then change accordingly, rather than only keeping the customer in the mind. Another very important thing, of course, is passenger experience. We never want to walk out of that. That's our main objective. We are actually making them travel through. But at the same time, please be ensured to understand what runs through a passenger's mind and which are those spaces they would be comfortable most with. So believe me, in my experience, people want to hush, clear their security first because they're always somewhere at the back of the mind scared to miss their flights. So the most important area that is used by the passenger after check-in and security is the security hold. And that is the area which we want people to know is designed to the perfectionism, from the facilities to be provided and the experiences of retail and F&B to be created. So that's going to be one of the objectives that you need to do. And at the same time, if it's a widespread area, they should know how to reach their point of depart, that's their aircraft, as soon as possible at any point when they are. This is where the technology play roles, where you create apps or you have screens which are there to be displayed to let people know at what time which flight is going to be going and what is their parking span from one end to the other. Coming to revenue generation, that's something when we talk sustainability. And you will not believe it, the most expensive part in our terminal buildings is HVACs. Forget about any other technology that we put and spend and put them. the maximum that goes in with us is trying to maintain the best temperatures and the cadmium lights for the passengers. That's one of the most important factors that we see when we do for the passengers. And you'll have all kind of people to walk in. Some will feel it's cold, some will feel it's hot, and there can be tons of complaints when your terminal managers are sitting there. So you need to be very careful to understand what is that technology that you're providing which can be the best temperature for every human being that they would be comfortable. One more minute. So these are some of the things that I would like when you all are sitting on the table and getting onto design when it comes to airport. Of course, there's airside. That's too technical to go in with the crowd here because that's done absolutely exclusive when they're doing master plans because that's the international ICAO norms and too many manuals that we follow. So these are some of the points which I say. Heating, ventilating, air conditioning, this is behind the scenes. The aero bridges should be perfect. Your fire services should be perfect. We have all the kind of NOCs that we have to take and all the environmental clearances that we have to take. So people have to remember that you have to start from those basics rather than to first coming to say that it's going to be the destination for the passenger. That is the aim. I'm not saying it's not. As simple as talking of how we're going to be maintaining all our assets, how the cleaning is going to be if you have so much of glass, how much ever machinery you have. When people enter airport, they want that everything should be 100% perfect. You know, people do believe they paid for an experience to ride it out from there. And that's what they wanted. And we try and do everything. So when we are providing even as simple as a washroom to any passenger, you need to be careful that every age group and every kind of passenger with mobility is able to use that on their own with dignity. So please remember next time that these are some of the critical assets that an airport operator has to be very careful with and maintain. So please do put in that effort to understand what is the best you can do when you design into this. So we are complex aviation. It's not just what you see is running in front. There is a lot that happens behind the green room in the theater when you run operations. And thank you so much for such a patient hearing. And please be like this when you all travel, even if your flight gets a little delayed for some time. Just a quick summary for all of you to know is think of the chain when you're working. It's going to be the strategic planning, collaborative management. You need to be having multi-chain information services, digital safety and security, resource planning. Don't forget the airport flow. Please remember, we are a linear function operation moment. You will check in first and you'll go through security later. It cannot get into the reverse order. So please remember these moments, as I said, with wayfinding has to be so perfect that the first time travel should know the process also. And of course, the intelligent business that we're talking of. So sit back, all right, and buckle up and have a safe flight. I'm not going to be standing much more and come in between your lunch. And have safe flights wherever you're getting back after this program. And thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm going to request Charanjit Singh Shah to, give a note of thanks to Nandita. So, could you please do the honors? Congratulations.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Sorry, our next speaker was supposed to be Mr. Charanjit Deshmukh, but because this session was to be held yesterday and it got pushed to today due to organizational issues, Mr. Charanjit Deshmukh excused himself. Since we have architects and other stakeholders in this meeting here, I thought I should spend about 10 to 12 minutes and take you through what all goes into the design part okay, of an architectural project. And also a little bit about, it'll take you a little bit through about 20 years of a journey in Indian architecture. So I'm going to take you through this, airports basically. And there's one very interesting aspect to the Indian airports. You know, Indian airports are like gateways to our cities. You know about Mumbai. You know what a spectacular airport it is. Again, we've got Ashwini who's going to talk to us a little bit about it as we go down the line. But each airport is an opportunity for the city to kind of display its best side to the visitor. And it's amazing how, architects, think of airports as utilitarian buildings, but don't understand that actually an airport is a great opportunity for architecture itself. So I'm going to focus this presentation on something which is, not technical, not operative. It's, as a prelude to what would be a much more intense discussion afterwards by the panel, which will go into all aspects. I'm going to talk about theming of an airport, how airports are themed, and what opportunities there are to theme an airport. But before you theme an airport, it's important to understand what happens, what are the parameters with which we work in airport design. So go to the next slide, Diana. So I'm dedicating this presentation, so a little bit about myself. I'm basically going to structure this presentation with a little introduction to myself. It's important that you have this introduction because I'm speaking to you from a very unusual standpoint. So I'm going to talk to you about architecture works that I have done. I'm an architect. We had this plenary session before this, where an engineer called Kamal Hadkar talked about how we should all work collaboratively. And I thought that that's a very good way to get into this session, because Martin spoke about how we delivered collaboratively with the client, a team of 15 people, working from across the world are delivering an airport project. And that's the amazing thing about these airport projects, that these are kind of collaborative projects where a number of people come together and deliver a project together. So when I talk about Atelier Vama, I'm just one architect who has participated, and Atelier Vama is a kind of a team with one architect which has participated in several interesting airport projects in our country. And I would like to take you through the journey. Let me tell you that there are other players in this journey: Nordic, Aviaplan, Grimshaw, and my erstwhile firm, Stoop Assystem. All these firms have kind of worked together to deliver the projects that we're going to show you. This is not about the firms, this is about the themes. So please enjoy that journey. And if you have questions for the panel session, I'm going to talk very quickly and try and run through these slides as quickly as possible. I'm going to just give you an impression. So we are going to go through some aviation projects, master planning, talk to you a little bit about master planning, a little bit about the terminal design process, and then what is different about a passenger terminal building with respect to other buildings, that you designed. And then we will talk about some typologies. Diana, you'll have to rush through. Continue. So this is Atelier Vama. Please go to the next slide. We are basically a practice like architectural practices working globally. We are basically working out of India, Middle East, France, where our main offices, and of course we're working across the world. And we deliver projects not just in for architecture projects. We deliver projects across the world. These are the Presidential Palace in Ghana, in Niger, etc. So while we are going to talk about airports, please understand that in all these projects, there's a kind of a thematic content. And the projects that I'm going to show you now, are some significant airports. And I'm going to show you how an architect can intervene besides all the functions, etc., to bring thematic content into an airport, to make it relate to the client, to make it relate to the context and the people that are going to use the airport. So, Dana, you can move through all these slides, go on to the airport planning slides. So a little bit about aviation projects. We've had experience in delivering aviation projects across the world. And you know that when you do an airport project, right from techno-economic feasibility studies like Goa Airport, the master planning of Hyderabad Airport, which is done by Aviaplan, Stoop Assystem. I've been honored to be a part of that entire project. Then the runway and field design, and then various other projects in Bangalore, Noida, etc., where the team has participated. Next slide. And an airport is not just about the terminal building. It's a very complex project, and it involves a lot of complex aspects. So what does an architect do? This is not, this is an architect, whether it's Atale Vama, whether it's Toop, whether it's Nordic or whatever, they intervene in an airport in a holistic sense. And what's important is that they do master planning, architecture, then there's the structural engineer, the airside engineer, the landside civil works. Mr. Charanjit Singh just explained the different kind of dimensions, the different kind of people that work in an airport. And this is the Hyderabad International Airport. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it as we go down the line. This is an airport in Doha where the entire civil works. This is the Bangalore airport. You're seeing some of the airports in India which, we've been fortunate to be associated with. And there are other panelists here who are going to talk to you about this as we go along. This is Durgapur. This is a very interesting airport we did with Aéroport de Paris, which is in Benghazi in Libya. Next slide. That's Benghazi. This is another airport at Sheba, which is also in Africa. And this is an airport that's under construction now with Airport Authority of India. It's at Vijayawada, the current terminal at Vijayawada. Okay, where the concept design was done by Stupa System, and I was then the chairman of Stupa System. And this is the Jabalpur airport, which is also under construction today. I'm going to talk to you about these airports when we go down the presentation. This particular airport is the terminal building, again in Lakshadweep. This is the Agati terminal. Next slide. And this is a fantastic terminal. Ashwini should talk about it. Done by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, engineered by Arup and other engineering partners, and partnered by Stoop Consultants and our system during their journey. These are some of the other facility buildings done there. So you can see that in an airport, there's the terminal building, there's the master plan, and then there are all these other buildings which have to be handled. And it's interesting that in an airport master plan itself, when you look at it, can you go to the next slide? You can see that we are always, there are so many different dimensions to the master plan. And while doing the master plan, we are not just, you must understand that these airports now in India, these are commercial enterprises. Even the airport authority now thinks commercially. So every millimeter is being measured. At the same time, you want to have flexibility, you want comfort, and you want to also deliver, something that is going to give you financial returns. So as a designer, you have to really think, you have to measure every step that you take. So you have to be creative, but you have to be creative within parameters, which make business sense. And so what you're seeing out here is how we try to minimize and at the same time optimize is the right word, the air side. Try to get as much area on land side as possible so that the land side can be used. You think of the future, a 40-year future, when you make a master plan for an airport, and then you kind of think of all the different kind of facilities come. So you set a vision, you have policy planning, economic and financial planning, physical planning, and environmental planning. All these things go into the conception of an airport. What you're seeing out here is the Hyderabad International Airport. These are actually designs of 2003. And you can go there. It's one of the best airports in the world, one of the best airports in the country. And you can see that when you're making an airport, you're already thinking about how the airport will grow over a period of time. So you built the airport, and an airport keeps changing its face. The terminal building will be built, and then it'll grow after 4 or 5 years, and then it'll grow again after a few years. You have to have this kind of vision when you're making this design, that this building will grow, and how you're going to make it augment with time. And that's really, so this is Hyderabad, 5 million passengers, 10 million passengers, So you're predicting the future, 20 million passengers. Now imagine designing a building which is ever changing with time. And yet you got to make this building, architecturally significant, creative. In terms of business, you got to see that it makes full business sense, and that your business plan is flexible. We are saying that 40 million passengers in Hyderabad, 20 years from when it was designed. It might happen 12 years from when it was designed. How do you negotiate those positions? Your design has to be that flexible. It has to be that, interesting. Interestingly, I showed you Benghazi and Sheba airports. Very interestingly, those airports were designed for Muammar Gaddafi. So it's for a king, So you design one kind of airport for a king, but in India, the concessionaire is king, and the concessionaire thinks of the user because that's where he's going to make his money. We are going to talk to concessionaires today as much as designers in the next session. So keep that in mind. Go to the next slide. So these are the things that happen. We maximize the area for commercial development. We capitalize on the premium areas in the central loop. We try to designate spaces for aviation-related and indirectly related business facilities. We provide all the appropriate transport networks. We provide appropriate access, visibility, frontage. These are all things that mean business to us when we make a design of an airport. So out here you're seeing the different types of airports. I won't go through this, just run through these slides. When you look at these graphics, it'll give you different things, and this is all that goes into an overall airport master plan. And just like the airport master plan, the terminal building itself is a very complex planning. It has a very complex planning program. You would have evidenced it. So if you look at it, this is, for example, the Hyderabad terminal. Okay, these are the kind of principles, and you saw the principles when Martin spoke about it. So these are principles developed by Aviaplan, which was one of the earlier avatars of Nordic, while working with Stoop. So these same partners in 2003, when they were working, they made these kind of rules, and over a period of time, these rules kind of grew. So these are the principles: efficient facility planning, maximize the passenger throughput, ease of wayfinding, talked about signages, Nandita spoke of signages, minimize the walking distances, minimize the taxi distance and apron utilization, effective retail planning, passenger experience, expansion-friendly planning. These are things, criteria with which, we like to work our airports, and these things go with the passenger flow. And you can see the passenger flow diagrams out here. Next slide. And then, besides that, we look at the capacity and sizing of the terminal. So these are other aspects that are critical. And then we have a kind of a forecast with which we work with. So these are all the complexities, and the complexities go into security, check-in, arrival, departure, and those lead to the kind of forms the terminal buildings have. So there are different kinds of forms, and each one of these is a lecture in itself. What is the kind of form you should have? And let me tell you, every time a designer sits on the design table, he questions that form based upon the current requirement, the context in which he's designing. So none of these forms are taken for granted. These forms are always evolving. For example, you all saw some images of the Noida airport. That's kind of evolved through all these forms. None of these forms are relevant to that situation. That situation has its own inherent form, for the terminal building. So, we talked about single-level terminals, double-level terminals, multi-level terminals, and then in Noida, Martin spoke about how the entire forecourt has been designed in such a way that actually you try to integrate the movement through the forecourt instead of splitting the departure movement and the arrival movement completely. So these are kind of innovations that keep coming as you keep thinking about the different kind of arrangements you have. And these are the airports that, we've seen over a period of time, right from the Hyderabad airport, which has got this kind of shirt formation, and then you got the other airports like Beijing. Each one of them have got an evolution of form. And I'm taking you through this to tell you that, look, airports are fantastic opportunities for an architect. He has to collaborate, as Martin said, but at the same time, go to the next slide, please. We'll talk about this later. At the same time, we've got to understand that they are different from other buildings, and therefore there's a complexity in an airport terminal which you have to keep in mind. The terminal is the interface between ground and air transport. Next slide. It is a complex building, complex typology that has to address the demands of traffic, passenger comfort, safety. It plays a vital role in local and global economies. An airport is a business, it's a city. The moment you set up an airport, the cost of real estate around that area goes up. A real estate project becomes viable, and you get, very interesting business propositions happening there. A lot of people get employed the moment you make an airport. So airport commands efficiency in handling the aircraft flow, passenger flow, of course, baggage and, cargo. And just as we highlight the terminal building so much, we must understand cargo is also one of the most critical business elements of an airport. Cargo moves through an airport. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through this, but a great amount of issues regarding sustainability, right, can be tackled in airports itself. It's airline fuel. An airport is a place where a lot of energy consumption takes place, right? And this whole idea of sustainability, Mrs. Shah said, talked about net zero. Bangalore is a net zero airport. Ashwini may speak a little bit about that. It was the first time a client tried to see to it that the airport was completely net zero. When it came to Noida, one decided to go to the next level. And I think these are the things these are the challenges. It's a wonderful opportunity to see that we succeed in making these things happen. Next slide. So, and like this slide shows, when you design an airport, you design a city. It's a commitment not made for 1 year. It's a commitment made for the next 50 years. As a designer, you're going to keep coming back, expanding the building, expanding the city around the airport, intervening in this kind of a project. Next slide. And it's a city within itself. As much as the airport is a city, inside the terminal, there's a city itself. And one fascinating thing about airports, there's this huge roof area. As architects, you'll look at 4 sides, 4 elevations of a building, north, south, east, west. And what you don't realize is that this huge mass exposed to the sun, which is this entire roof. And both as an experience from within that terminal and an experience from outside, right? It presents a fantastic opportunity. So now I'm going to take you through some international airports, okay? Not, personal projects, but those will show you how these opportunities have been taken advantage of. Next slide. So here you can see how the roof has been used in different terminals. So, as we said, an airport as a gateway to a country, an airport as a gateway to a city, an airport as an opportunity for establishing a cultural identity. So, let's talk about some of these airports across the world and also some in India. Mumbai airport is, we all know about it now. It's a fantastic airport in terms of the way this opportunity has been utilized. The idea of using the national bird, at the same time creating something which is of ethereal beauty, peace, high degree of visibility, and of course, I think it has a very, very good retail space. Ashwini would be able to reflect upon how Noida progresses from this, okay, when we come to the next part of the panel discussion. Next slide. So another very, very interesting airport is Denver, where they've used the mountainscape of the Rocky Mountains behind, the mountains behind have been used to actually theme the entire airport. It's not just a question of aesthetics, that it looks like mountain peaks. It's also a question of way of bringing light into the terminal building. So and creating a kind of lightness, because when you're in the terminal, you're dwelling in it. You have to, spend time, you have to shop, you have to, that's how the airport business is generated. And you can see out here, how this entire terminal has used this kind of thematic reference so beautifully. Next slide. Another airport, a real favorite of mine, is basically the Queen Alia International Airport in Jordan, which again uses this Arabic theme of walls, across, made in concrete by Foster and Partners. A wonderful design. Form finish, very, very good detailing, very, very good opportunity for detailing. When we do airports, we think about these buildings that are completely conditioned. But there are opportunities we get as architects to design airports in smaller towns. And we should not think of these as metal and glass, structures. These are really opportunities to establish identity, culture, material. It's like a handshake with a city and a people, And so I wanted to show you this airport, which I thought was very interesting. This is an airport in Thailand, okay? And look at the way, the entire airport experience has been kind of, you get it. So you feel welcome and you feel you've come to a particular country and it's established a kind of an identity for you. Right, so I'm going to show you some personal experiences, my own experiences in terminal building design. I'll begin with a project I did with Martin's office. Is Nordic, and when I was working as head of the building section of Stoop Consultants. This project is the Hyderabad International Airport, and it's a very important part of the airport journey, because in 2003, the Indian government had decided that they want to actually follow the concessionaire route. So 2 private airports had come up. One was Bangalore and the other was Hyderabad. Both came up parallelly. Until then, nobody believed that this country would actually be coming up with, these kind of airports. And if you look at this terminal building, it is actually built of certain parts. So you've got out here in this terminal, I don't know if my pointer works. You've got out here in this terminal, okay, the pier. This is one element. Then you have got out here the main processing area, which is the second element, and a third element, which is the airport village. Now, all three elements can actually grow separately as per the business plan. So this is a reflection of the business plan. Tomorrow the pier needs to grow, but the concession area needs to remain the same size. The airport village needs to grow. So you don't kind of fix the architecture. The architecture kind of grows, okay, with time. You kind of predict it, but only up to a point. And yet the aesthetic has to work. Now, there are some fantastic innovations in this airport. You know, till then, okay, what today you are taking for granted in India, till then, you didn't have this concept of airport village. This is the first time in the country that someone thought that we'll create for the meters, greeters, weepers and wavers, as we call them. You know, the people who are outside saying bye and saying, hello when people come in, okay, we wanted to create while they are waiting for their delayed flight or, just waiting, come to say goodbye to their people. We wanted to create a place for them to meet and at a low cost. And we convinced the client that if they do that, right, they will be able to actually get some revenue. So this was an architectural intervention, and the client was good enough to say, hey, I think this makes business sense. And so we came up with an idea which was for the first time, which is a low-cost mall. And I think the same team 20 years later, when they show you the Noida airport with a new client, has taken this idea to the next level altogether. And you can see between the slides that you saw for the Noida airport and the slide that you see at Hyderabad for the airport village, the evolution that has taken place in this thinking. This innovation is an Indian innovation made by Indian and international players, but it is a global innovation. Airports did not have airport villages till in 2003, India decided to privatize airports, and at Hyderabad airport, this particular innovation was made. Now, both inside the terminal and outside the terminal, retail has become a very critical issue, and it is a fantastic intervention, and it has come basically through joint interaction between the client, designers, and actually designers who have been collaborating, Indian and international designers. Next slide. So these are the principles of the airport. Continue quickly, Diana. We are running short of time. And this is the terminal building at Hyderabad. These are the original perspective views, and these are the photographs eventually. And one interesting thing I must tell you about Hyderabad. At the time when it was being designed, the Chief Minister was N. Chandrababu Naidu. And he insisted that this be an international airport like Singapore. So this project was won through global competition. And he kept saying international, 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 till the design was getting realized. At that time, he said, and there was an election coming up, he said, I want a local touch, little tradition. Now we've designed a building which is international, because that was the brief, and suddenly we have to bring this kind of local touch, And so what happened was we were on the way to the Indian School of Business, where we were making our presentations to the client, and we got a call saying, Chief Minister wants local touch. And how do you bring that? So what we did, if you go to the slide, Diana, do you have the slide of the leaf? So what we did is, on the journey, I saw a temple tree, and I kind of plucked the leaf of the temple tree, and I told, we'll make this into the signature element, because we wanted to bring light into the terminal, and that's very important because these terminals are very deep, right? So we need to bring light in, but we wanted to bring diffused light. So what we did is we made what is a daylight chandelier, and this daylight chandelier, we took this temple tree leaf, and then we allowed it to kind of diffuse light and bring it in. And that simple gesture of how light came into the building, that lamp, was actually a signature element of the Hyderabad International Airport. So while there's so much more in all the planning of the airport, that little local flavor, that little local touch, it made a lot of difference, okay? And it also actually builds the character of the entire place. And so as an architect, in an airport, I say is 95% technology. 5%, is innovation and architectural intervention. But that 5% can make a huge difference. It can bring a lot of human touch into it. These are some of the sketches of the airport village and the way this terminal grows. And you can see, I'm showing you original sketches made by, this is a sketch made by Goodman Stoke, the head of Nordic, okay, at the time of the airport. This is all the circulation drawings. Next slide. So while the building has all this technology, at the same time, the whole concept has been made in such a way and brought together by this kind of little touch, which you can see the executed version of it and how the kind of skylights flow and connect the entire terminal building together. And of course, these little touches are there across the building, in the jalis, in the louvers. You try and bring these little touches because this building is a machine, right? At the same time, you have to humanize this entire experience. Because people are going to spend time in it. They've got to love it. They've got to feel that they want to be here, in this terminal. So these are some of the innovations at the Hyderabad International Airport. And this is the swing gates, which is a real innovation at that time, because India had this peculiarity. We had international flights going in the night and domestic flights going in the day. So how do you use the gates, right? Because of this different thing. So in the night time, the international flight would want to use the all the gates. So we had this kind of system of swing gates, which itself was an innovation at that time. So I'm showing you something which these are like breakthroughs in Indian airport architecture, but they're also global breakthroughs. They're also global innovation. That perspective view was made in my office of the airport village. And you can see the kind of roof there and this here. And now you take this is Hyderabad's airport village. And now let's move 20 years later to how over a period of time that has evolved into what happened, okay, in the Noida International Airport. This is the airport village at Hyderabad. Is here. Next slide. And I've mentioned to you, and of course, another very interesting element for you is the air traffic control tower. And here you can see the air traffic control tower at Hyderabad. I was fortunate to have had a hand in designing it. This is the landmark, right? So from far away, you see the air traffic control tower. Just as from the air traffic control tower, they see the entire runway. But I'll tell you a little joke. I met a cricketer the other day. I like cricket a lot. I've been involved in doing a lot of stadiums, etc. And while designing this, I didn't mention this, but I can mention it today. Now it's 20 years later. Okay, I met Mohammad Adharuddin, And Mohammad Adharuddin, he comes from Hyderabad. He has this kind of upturned collar all the time. And so when I was designing it, it was done very subconsciously. It was not done very consciously. I kind of put this little collar there, and I kept quiet, quiet joke of my own. It gave direction to the building, right? But at the same time, it had this little, so there's this opportunity to have a little sense of humor, and he didn't know it, okay? Nobody knew it. This is an in-house designer's kind of sense of humor. I'm going to make this collar, and where I got the collar from, okay, is another story. And I'm an engineer's son, and I've basically been managing a large engineering company for a good part of my life. I've started the second innings now as an architect. So while working in that firm, Stoop Consultants, we had engineers, architects sitting on the table together, taking a concept like this, okay, and making it into a kind of a reality, a piece of architecture, okay, which is this thing. This is the terminal building. It's a very interesting terminal because not just an air side, it's also got a ferry terminal. So you go from air side to ferry side, okay, straight away. Next slide. Here you can see the form and some of the sections. And of course, there's a nice animation, but you can skip it. We'll just move forward. And so from there to rocks, from sea to rocks, and the airport authority, it came up with this idea. So the airport authority has caught on to this idea. After all these international airports, they've said now every terminal building that they want to have, they want it to have a theme of place. So they actually had a committee, which airport authority appointed, of architects who were specialists, who were going to give us the theme. So here the theme was given to us of rocks of Jabalpur. They told us what Jabalpur is all about. Jabal means rock, right? So we've kind of used this concept of rock, and the fractured rock, and the marble rocks of Jabalpur is famous for this marble rock quarry. Okay, and we've developed this terminal. Just have a look at this from the thematic point of view. This terminal is under construction. This project is being executed by Stoop Consultants, and myself, as the head of Ataliya Vama today, led the concept of this project. And you can see out here some of the images, the inspirations, and how the inspirations translate into a kind of fragmented form. The marble rocks, you can see the marble rocks up there, and how they translate into this kind of fragmented form, and how this fragmented form translates into the terminal building, architectural facade and interior. That's the forecourt. And of course, what you see out here is the the airside view. Next slide. And this is as you're moving in, and this is inside the terminal building itself. So stop here, and here you can see how we brought natural light in. These are north lights. At the same time, there are these kind of fractured formations, which are basically inspired by the rocks around the area. And the idea is that when you're inside the terminal, you should have this kind of inviting experience, which is a sense of place. So Jabalpur, known for the rocks, the marble rocks, you get this feeling as you move into the terminal that you're walking through a canyon of marble rocks. Next slide. These are some images of the terminal. And this is the airport that is a terminal that is now being constructed. This is at Vijayawada, the new terminal at Vijayawada. And I think this what you're seeing out here is the concept design. It's inspired by the river Krishna, And Vijayawada is very interesting because you have Amravati, the new city on one side, and Vijayawada, the old city, and between them the river Krishna. And so we've taken this river as an inspiration, and of course the dance of the place. So very quickly go through the slides and explain that. What I wanted to show you was that besides the structure, the engineering, the technology which you have to have, these are fantastic opportunities to theme a project, and for an architectural intervention which will touch the human heart. Next slide. So, you can bring in the dance, the culture of the place. Mumbai airport is a fantastic example. I mean, you have a museum inside the airport. I mean, what more can you expect? But you can see out here, how you can bring all these different aspects, into a terminal and make people relate to it. So this is the Vijayawada terminal. This is the view from outside. This project is under construction now, and you can see out here. And of course, architecture, as I said, a part of it. It has to integrate and collaborate with all the other disciplines. So Stoop Consultants is taking this project forward as the designer and project manager. There is a contractor. The contractor brings his own designer because this is an EPC project, and the entire team works in a collaborative fashion. So an airport has many, an airport project has many stakeholders. It's not just one person. Martin mentioned to you there are 15 people working on the Noida airport concept alone, but by the time the Noida airport is done, right, I think you wouldn't be able to count. There'll be a book full of people who will have kind of contributed to a project like that. So thank you very much. I'm now going to ask the panel to come and sit, and whatever questions you have would be asked to the panel themselves. As an initial aspect to this panel discussion, I would like each panelist to come and present 4 or 5 slides. It'll introduce themselves and also introduce some issues that they want to discuss with you. I'm now requesting Mrs. Ashwini Thorat to come and show us a few slides and also introduce herself to the panel. And Ashwini is, by the way, a very, very experienced professional. She is right now managing the entire process from the concessionaire's point of view at Yapple. Okay, and I'm sure it'll be very, very interesting after having seen all the presentations so far to actually meet the client and get a client's point of view. Ashwini, we look forward to your presentation.
So while the slides come up, I have to say a big congratulations to iDAC because they have organized a wonderful event and dedicated this section to airports, because I think this is a tell by itself, because Martin mentioned about passenger terminal expo that happens every year in Europe, someplace in Europe, but it's a yearly event and it spans over 3 days dedicated to airports. That's what happens in Europe. It's a yearly event and we all look forward to it. We all go there because it's a great place. It's all about airports that get talked. Why? Because the subject is so complex. I think everybody what they spoke here, I mean everyone before me, Nandita, Charanjit and Abhin, whatever they spoke here, they were rushing through to pass that info to you, to give all the different perspective, because everybody brings a different perspective. Every side brings a different perspective. I'm speaking basically from the concessionaire side, that is the owner of the airport. But there's so much to speak that I'm telling you, mark my words, in coming years there will be forums like Passenger Terminal Expo in India dedicated to airports. That's the opportunity for anyone sitting here, youngsters, vendors, suppliers. I think that's where airports in India are going. Okay, just to set the context here. But they all said I'm the client, right? And do you all believe that I pay for this project? I mean, I as in my company pays for this project. Do you all agree with that? Can I just see a show of hand? Do you all believe that I pay for this airports, or my company pays for these airports that we are building, Noida International Airport? Do you all believe that we paid these architects and this client? Do you agree? Yes, no? Some show of hand? Yes, no? Something, guys? No? So who pays? You all pay. You all pay for airports. I am only managing your money. That's what I want to say, okay? I am only managing your money. And why we say this is because Abhin has touched upon it. Nandita has said this. Financial viability of this project is important to us. What we are paying as electricity bill for HVAC, for lighting, is important to us. All of this is important to us. Why? Because in the end, it's your money going there. So we have to make every penny count. Now, today I'm going to talk about, of course, Noida International Airport, but I'll also talk about my journey. And I have to say my journey coincides with a little bit of Indian airports journey, and I'll show you how. So this airport, I believe, is the airport of New India, what we call Nav Bharat. And it's coming from the point of being an Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means we are becoming that resilient that we can do aviation and airports by ourselves also. Okay, I have to say that. That's where Noida International Airport is going. And all of these guys that you heard before, you saw the various airports they are doing. They have started doing since that 2003-2005 period when the skies were opened basically in aviation, and privatization was allowed. So before that we only had Air India and those carriers, but then you got Jet and you got Kingfisher and you had Air Deccan, and all of this happened. When that boom happened, obviously airports had to come in to cater to that demand, and that's when the sector really started seeing prospects. So yeah, next slide please. Do I have the ticker? So Noida International Airport is being developed by Zurich International Airport. Their first venture was when I worked back with them on the Bangalore International Airport. So that was their first project in India. This is their second in India. But Zurich International Airport is been in this industry for 73 years, operates a lot of airports in Latin America, as well as it's of course the largest one in Europe that they manage, the Zurich Airport. I think with Noida International Airport, we are fostering development because currently if you see the site where it is located, what is happening, there is nothing out there. But in few years you will see how, Abhin also said this, that the airport is a city, or how airport makes a city. Literally, that's when the nucleus shifts. If you want to invest, you should invest always in land near the airport. It's bound to boom. Not today, but in coming years for sure. And while doing this, based on all our experience of 73 years, and of course in India with Bangalore International Airport and other, there are two aspects what we are focusing on now as current context, because airports have to be relevant to the current context and to what's coming in future. Like was said earlier, we are thinking about 30, 40 years. And if you want to know more on what we are thinking, you have to stay back in the panel. We'll touch upon those innovations and thinking that is going into future airports. So that's what in Noida International Airport, we are focusing right now on two aspects. One is digital, other is sustainability. Kind of go hand in hand, because we are in a phase of what I call also, and what is spoken about largely now, neuroarchitecture, which means we know how people feel in these spaces that are getting designed. All these designs that you saw, you need to understand how it impacts human being is already known through wearable technologies, through all that we can map right now. We know through the cameras that are getting installed in the airports, every time you smile, we know our customer is happy. Every time you frown, we know our customer is unhappy about something, and we get into the details of that. So airports are also somewhere where there's a real-time feedback coming in. You don't like it, you make noise, everybody knows. You put complaints, everybody knows. But we have real time. That doesn't happen in any infrastructure. It doesn't happen in malls so much. It doesn't happen in metros or other areas. But it happens real time in airports. We get to know how you feel because we are mapping things. So we have come to that point where we want to do exactly what you wish to do at that point in the airport, right? We are at that stage. Okay, so I tried keeping this short because I was told 5 slides. So I'm trying to map my journey over the last 18 years in aviation. So on the bottom is my journey when I started with airports. On this axis here is really what Indian aviation has gone through. And here is a little bit of, I would say, aviation architecture, the way it has gone. So I started airports in 2005 with Bangalore International Airport. And when I started, I was really figuring out what? Greenfield airports? What are those? Because I don't think anybody knew greenfield airports. Even in Europe and America, people might not have done as many greenfield airports as we have done here. And all that you saw earlier, all those greenfield airports, nobody in India, in Europe or America might have done this. So really, it was a new thing, it was a new term. And I was figuring out the what of it. But I was not the only one. A lot of them in aviation, Indian aviation, were figuring out what's greenfield airport, how to deal with it, because it's so complex and so, I would say, multi-stakeholder oriented. Martin mentioned 5, but I have to say, I had more than 40 firms to deal with since 2020 when we started Noida International Airport. And we literally finished the entire design, tendering, without me taking out a single print. When was that possible? I don't think as architects we can ever work without taking out hard copies and looking on it on a big A0 size scale. But we did that because we were driven, of course, with the sustainability angle, but also because of the pandemic, we were forced to think digital. We were forced to collaborate online. It was more whiteboards. It was more OneNote. It was SharePoint, as Martin also said earlier. So literally, it was something we were doing for first time, but uniquely. But greenfield airports are that complex that you need so many people. There are so many specialized firms in this, starting from, of course, the whole airfield, which I call like the heart of an airport, because that's where the real operation takes place. It's very, very technical, driven by manuals, operational SLAs, and so on and so forth. There's no room for error out there, literally. But that's like the heart of the airport. And the terminal building, which everybody speaks as architects very passionately, I call the soul of an airport, because that's where you feel the place. That's where you feel the terminal, that the airport, let's say, concepts, like the themes that are spoken about. But that's where you feel them. So 2005 is when the greenfield airports in India started. Bangalore, Hyderabad were the 2 concessions that went out in 2005. Been very fortunate to work with them in that stage of construction and seeing them through. So it takes time to build airports. As you can see, the journey has been long one. So 2005 we start, 2008 we open up, and I have to quote here, contrary to what Abhin said, what happened in Hyderabad with Chandrababu Naidu, Bangalore and Hyderabad were competing, okay? Not just in airports, because they were competing also politically a little bit. There was Chandrababu Naidu leading Hyderabad, trying to make it the tech city. And we were in Bangalore, where it was SM Krishna. and it was trying to be the Silicon Valley of India. So that was also the fact. So we were competing with each other. And we had foreign architects, international firm, Dorsch, who was designing our terminal building. And they literally created a concept where it was red brick stone, red granite on the columns, and black granite on the floor with a mandala pattern on it. And concession awarded. L&T was doing construction. We are designing all of it. We get the visit from Civil Aviation Minister, and he's like, I'm promising everybody that India is going to get international airports, and you are trying to build a temple out here. So that was a feedback to us. Contrary to what he got a feedback that bring Indianness, because he was an Indian architect trying to create an international impression out here. We, on the other hand, had international architects trying to see from an Indian's eye and trying to build this and saying, and the feedback coming from our stakeholder is like, where's the international touch in it? You know, so we had to change literally overnight. He had to leave there. We had to change overnight the entire material. Costed us a lot, but we had to do that because we had to show it in a modern touch. And I don't know how many of you remember the Bangalore old terminal, but it was really grey, green and black. Very European touch suddenly, from all the green and the red and the black to a green, grey and black, which was a European touch, because we were told to make it into an international airport. So it's not always what you design that ends up happening also. There's a lot of things that go into it. But when we finished this Bangalore International Airport, boom came the feedback. Everybody started comparing it to Hyderabad airport, and they were like, oh, see, Hyderabad is a fancier one, Bangalore is not fancy. But Bangalore was not fancy because the Zurich airport believed in doing efficient design, believed in keeping the cost low, believed in making it very simple and easy for passengers to walk in and out. And still, by far, whoever I meet always says Bangalore International Airport is the most easy airport to get in and get out, because it was designed in that manner. Then, when we started going back to an expansion of Bangalore Airport, which is when was 2010, something different happened in Indian airports, which is when ERA came in. ERA is like, you must be knowing RERA, so I'm giving the reference, but Airport Economic Regulatory Authority got established to say, now we will watch what you are spending the money on. So this is the body which we answer to, and where we have to justify every money that gets spent in the airport. Every penny, doesn't matter whom it is paid to, gets justified to this body, and then this body decides how much we're going to come back with. So suddenly, from a free hand that we had in 2005, I have to say in 2010 we got a little confined to what we were doing, because we had now somebody like a big daddy watching upon us, what we are doing. Then came 2013. This is when Mumbai International Airport was coming, the T2 terminal was coming. And at that point, you know, in Indian airports, just before 2013, I think 2009 or 10, is when Mumbai and Delhi went into privatization. So the government took a very bold decision to privatize two biggest airports in India, Mumbai and Delhi. And they were literally biggest because they were the gateway to the country, right? And then the concept of everybody working on airports, designing airports started changing, because now we were trying to say that we are not designing just an airport for a city or insignificant way, but we are now trying to do something which is going to showcase the nation. And when we started with Mumbai airport journey, Sanjay Reddy, who was then the managing director of the company and vice chairman GVK, he said we have to create something which creates a sense of pride in people, right? And that's when we started to go into that direction to say, okay, we have to create. And I think everybody who traveled through Mumbai definitely feels the sense of pride that went into creating it. So that was Gateways to India. Zooming into 2017, we started designing Navi Mumbai Airport. Why? Because aviation sector is now growing, and we are at a point where we have two airports in a city, not one anymore. We are getting to the point where we have two airports in a city. So there is MOPA. Everybody might be knowing MOPA, but it's the Goa one, which is the new airport coming up in Goa. So there will be two airports in Goa. There's going to be two airports in Mumbai. There are going to be two airports in soon in Jewar. So we are coming to a point in NCR region. So we are coming to a point where there are two airports in India, not one anymore. Just to show how the aviation sector is growing, guys. I mean, how important it is for you to start planning your careers if you have an opportunity really towards aviation. Last one, 2020 is when I joined Noida International Airport. Guess what? It's going to be the largest airport in India, in Asia also, and in the world, third largest. Why? Because India has arrived, guys. India, in a way, has arrived. We are no more talking just one airport, two airports in a city. We are talking the bigger or the biggest. And Noida International Airport is that what the vision of the government is. And why? Because we don't want to create flights going to Dubai and people maybe transferring in Dubai and then flying to another region. We want to create hub airports in India. Could we do it before? No, because we didn't have the land, we didn't have the space to create those kind of hub airports. But now there is that opportunity to do it, right? I should rush. Okay, so pretty much done. I think I'll skip this slide, but this basically was just highlighting 2 points which we will cover later in the panel. That Noida International Airport is going to be biggest, no doubt, but it's also focusing on two very, very fundamental issues, that is sustainability and digital. And of course, local. So this logo of ours is where we are representing the local bird, the Sarus crane, which takes the longest flight. And the two colors that are here is, of course, the blue and the green, which is significantly, resonating with digital and sustainability. So, thank you. Looking forward to the panel.
Ashwini, I request you to sit on the panel, and I'm going to request Mr. J. Subramanian to introduce himself and talk for a couple of minutes. Mr. J. Subramanian, we've already spoken about him, at the beginning of this session, but he was the design manager for the Hyderabad International Airport, which we've already discussed. He'll take you through a few images of that. He has had an illustrious career of almost 5 decades. He is an educationist, and he has worked globally as an architect. I will request J. Subramanian to take the stage, and after finishing your presentation, please sit down on the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Out of this 5 decades of my experience, more than 50% has been with Abhin, more than 3 decades. So it is very difficult to speak something other than what he showed on the screen. So I'm going to show you some few slides and then tell about some of my concerns about the future of airport design. Now, no, this is not the presentation. I showed you the other one. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Now I will. There's full mess up of the presentation. See, when you read history, you always need a reference point. Now, when you talk of world history, you say that before Christ, after Christ, and all that. So, if somebody had to write about history of airports, particularly Indian airports, well, what they will do, they will take about the state-run airports and the privatized airports. So that is the reference point. Many things have come for better. Now, I will run through this. In fact, we have a hands-on experience because Hyderabad Airport was one of the earliest privatized airports. Now, historically, airports have been funded, constructed, and operated, and the stress was on providing services, at least what they claimed. But then, rather than achieving commercial viability, let alone commercial profitability. So what happened was, when the privatization took place, 74%, 13% and 13%, the stress shifted from politics to business. The whole thing, airport became a commercial venture, and people started, as Abhin remarked, they were very critical of whatever they were doing inside the airport, outside the airport, the surrounding the airport, etc. Then the management also earlier, it was more political, devoid of corporate culture. Now corporate culture stepped into, airport management. And then, at least in Hyderabad airport, I would like to share some one or two experiences. People talked about competition between Bangalore and Hyderabad and all that. This A380 was a very big challenge. Now, I don't know, most of you will know by now that A380 is withdrawn. Now, A380 is no more a civilian aircraft. Now, how much we worked hard on meeting this, and airports are vying with one another. And I don't think both Bangalore and Hyderabad should have, designed the facilities for A380. 4.2 kilometers is the length of the runway, the ground facilities, ground support equipments, and special aero bridges. Why all this? Same thing happened to supersonic aircraft about 20 years ago. So the aircraft industry has taken the world for a ride. Because, absolutely, because, airports or GMR invested a lot of money mainly to compete, as she said, compete with Bangalore. You are having, an A380, I'll also operate A380. Then both, and finally there is no A380. So this is something which is really, and I was personally involved in this, so I know what all we did in order to improve the ground thing. And okay, apart from that, having come into private sector, what did we do? See, in the earlier part, there was no specific expansion, strategy at all. In fact, nobody thought of expansion, so expansion just happened. And it became more chaotic. Most of the airports, you found a board, sorry for the disturbance, we are doing this and all that. And as Abhin very nicely explained, we did Hyderabad airport with the stress on easy expansion in two stages. One was a loose fit. The loose fit meaning the building being built slightly larger, so the immediate surge in expansion can be accommodated without having to build anything civil. Don't have to go for brick and mortar. You only add counter, you only add conveyor belts, etc., etc. That's what done. Then second phase of expansion was also done in such a way. In fact, I had one slide on it. Unfortunately, they are not able to show it. Now, there are three sections to the thing. One thing is the airport village, and then the concourse, and then you have the regulatory bodies, and then you have passenger boarding. Now, all these were planned in such a manner that all of them can expand independently, with the ends being a demountable wall. So the things expanded, to the required level, and overnight you could remove that wall, and so that you make it part of it. There is no diversion of traffic, etc. I think this was our major contribution. And one more thing, what we did there was service tunnel. I think Hyderabad airport was the first one to have the service tunnel. Then Bangalore also followed suit. The service tunnel, very often you find on the air side, people start digging to run, extra cables, extra lines, extra communication lines and all that. In Hyderabad airport, we made a 3 meter by 3 meter complete tube. And even a battery vehicle can go inside. And services were all installed there, so without having to disturb any movement, you can sort of extend the service tunnel. So this was another thing. Then we simplified many of the, ground operations. Both the, people who spoke from client side, they said about the difficulties of managing the aircraft. In fact, Hyderabad airport was the first one to have fuel hydrants. The fuel hydrants, then of course, now, all the other airports now, have got fuel hydrants. We removed one big, massive vehicle, fuel tanker coming into the, into the apron. So that was a big, big breakthrough, and that had its own problems, having the fuel hydrants. And of course, security concerns were addressed very meticulously, and now, of course, pandemic has added a lot of other dimensions. Now, Hyderabad airport is a time when we all realize that the need for having budget terminals and also budget airlines. And one thing I want to mention, I think somebody is going to talk about the natural light and all that. See, there is a craze for getting LEED certification. Now, I would rather certify an airport based on its functional efficiency rather than lead parameters, because I had a bitter experience with the lead representatives and their, and their auditors when I designed Hyderabad airport. And see, airports have got to be rather deeper rather than longer, because the functions are, linear and then sequential. Now, when you have a deep thing like this, you can't get much periphery light into the central part. The roof, of course, the upper level can have skylights, but what happens to the lower floor? And courtyards and the garden city and all that, more romantic than being functional. Those completely break. Even Kuala Lumpur has failed. And if you see Kuala Lumpur airport, there is a garden inside. They say they created a forest inside. So, these kind of things. Now, I have only one experience I want to share. In a lighter note, what I had in Delhi. I went to Delhi to get the master plan approved by the airport authority. And the master plan, as Abhin showed, it had two sets of runways with the central corridor for the rail and the road, going in between. But these two runways had to be connected. So we had connecting taxiways. Now, if you have connecting taxiway levels you cannot change. So you have got to dip the road and then dip the rail. So that's what we made in the master plan. So when I went to Delhi for approval, they said, no, it is very unsafe. Somebody can plant a bomb here, this here, that here, and all that. Then we showed a lot of pictures. Charles de Gaulle has got it. Kuwait, we as two persons have done, a tunnel under the runway. There are many airports in the world. And after a prolonged argument, the airport authority official felt that, oh, this fellow is incorrigible. You have to approve the plan. So he asked me, sir, when this will come? Told him it will take at least 25 years. Oh, by that time I would have retired. He simply stamped on the plan. So I simply ran away, collected the stamped plan, and that is how the plan was approved. This in a lighter tone, I wanted to discuss this, and other things, of course, we'll speak during the thing. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll go down.
I'd like to request Ashwini and Jay to sit for the panel discussion. Ekta, please come. We'll have the panel discussion, then we'll speak about lighting. So we are running a little short of time, so I thought we can have the panel discussion now, and then Ekta will show you a few things about lighting in airports, and it's very interesting for you all to look at it even in context of this exhibition. So please do stay on. Since there are people here who would like to travel, I thought we'll go through the panel discussion immediately. So Martin, thank you for patiently going through all the presentations. You've now got a reasonable perspective of different airport projects in India. And we've got an audience out here. I'm going to first start by, asking Ekta to tell us a little bit about, how lighting, could help, in airport design.
A very simple question to all of you first is that if I suddenly switch off everything here, what is the first reaction that everybody is going to give? I guess somebody will pick up their mobiles, somebody will open up the torch, somebody would want to search for a space which has light because you feel safe. Now, lighting when it comes to airports, you're very correctly, Abhin has mentioned earlier, even Nandita, she's not here right now, but airport is something which has to happen for all age groups. So you have to get into adaptation of all sets of eyes. Many problems like sinus, anxieties, somebody's, so clarity of what you're going to see ahead, everything has to be very, very clearly be there. When it comes to, in terms of colors or what you're seeing, the diffusion part of it, the daylight aspects, the kind of integration that you do with lights, no glare, or I would say a much eye-pleasing environment created through eyes, not like the ones jarring directly on our eyes. These are some things and some aspects that we consider carefully before getting into any kind of design with lighting.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of a controversial subject. You know, I feel that it's afternoon and we need a little bit of shaking up. So Jay, you made a point here, and I'm going to put a little contrarian point there, and Ashwini and Martin have got to answer that. You know, you mentioned that courtyards are romantic. I think you're going to have romance in the courtyard at Noida, but it's not romantic at all. I think things have, it is my understanding that things have evolved to such an extent that what we earlier would have considered to be, an extravagance, right? With technology, with an understanding of environment, we are now coming to a point where we can make certain things happen. I'm saying this in a lighter vein. I know what you meant. Okay, I just want, Ekta talks, Ekta is someone who's into daylighting. We've got Martin who's designing something which is completely unique. And we've got Ashwini here who's kind of, accepted to build it. And I know what it took to accept it. You know, the debate at that time about this, what to accept it. Internally as designers, when we are sitting and discussing this, we had this question that we've got to, really study this in detail with the client, and the client, eventually it's a business proposition, it's a question of maintenance, etc. So Ashwini, first you and then Martin, tell us what was the thinking behind this?
So I'm going to take a little longer route here. So first to say that I said, we need 40 plus architects who worked on this project, 40 plus firms which worked on this Noida International Airport. One of them as specialist is of course the lighting consultant. It's that important an aspect of lighting. She has spoken about everything which means for the designers, why and what they do part of it. I have to come from, again, because I'm managing your money, don't forget that. So I come from the money aspect, and I'm asking, the more the daylight, the longer the light stays inside, the lesser I will burn energy. So my bill is going to be lesser if they do a good job. So I definitely push for more daylighting. That brings in to the fact that Abhin and Sir also said earlier that we have huge mass. We have terminal buildings are huge. They are like, 4 football stadiums kind of a thing at times. So what are we talking? How do we get light inside that thing? So courtyard, right? In the middle of the head house where you've got shopping and all, we have a courtyard that's designed by this team to bring the daylight inside. Now, a lot of airports have courtyard which bring daylight inside. But you heard what Nandita said also. Where does the money go? In HVAC. Now, how do I make sure that we bring down the HVAC consumption? So we went a step ahead, and that's the step he's talking about, that took a lot of time and deliberation because that's not been taken ever before, is to open the courtyard doors and glasses and let the ambient air inside. That's not been done before. Yes, you have Kuala Lumpur, but you can't open the glass doors in the Kuala Lumpur airport. So you can pass by the courtyard and you can see the greenery there, but you can't feel it, you can't enjoy it. If you go there, the doors are closed, you can't generally go there, you can visually feel it. But this is not for show, it's absolute utilitarian courtyard. But we always have a hidden agenda of why we do things, and why we do is again for all of the users. We know, and I think she will agree with me, and all of you architects will agree here, that every geometry, every shape that we plan and we do, it impacts the human well-being in the end, right? When we have courtyard, we obviously will have greenery, we can grow trees. Otherwise, trees can be grown in an inner environment, but for that I will have to put more light to grow that tree, which is illogical. So here, we are letting the light come in directly and then have a courtyard with the trees there and tall trees. And how does this help you? Immediately, anything natural is going to help you feel comfortable as you travel through this airport. And that's when you're going to enjoy shopping in that section, what we call the security hold area or SHA or head house and retail space. That's when we will make money and we will charge you lesser. It's all connected in the end. So very simple topic, but very complex when it comes to putting it in the airport context. Long route, but
That's a fantastic articulation of that challenge. Martin, do you have something to add on that?
Well, I think it's summarized very well by Ashwini. What is important courtyard in a building like this, in a climate like this, because it's also related to the specific climate that we're working in Noida. It's what Ashwini says about the size, and I would turn it the other way around and say that courtyards in this case is not romantic, it's pragmatic. It has to do with a section of the building. You don't want to get all the ductwork horizontally, because that's going to break a lot of important passenger flows, and it's a very complex room program in a building like this. So it's a way to sort of bring down the volume, which is also important in relation to the sill height of the planes. And it's as we've been discussing before, it's related to this hybrid way of ventilating the building, and it brings daylight into the heart of the building, and it has to do with the entire size and depth of a building like this, and the fact that you want to bring the air in from where the air is clean. If you were to bring the air in from airside, then you would need large filters for getting rid of exhaust. So it is, as Ashwini says, it's a matter of taking money away from HVAC systems towards quality of the building itself.
Yes, Jay, would you like to say a few things?
There is some kind of a distortion in our discussion. What I went to stress was that I don't want to chase LEED certification. See, LEED certification is not the goal of design of an airport. This I had the personal bitterness because GMR were disappointed that they could not get gold. And I was the person who was discussing with the inspectors, lead inspectors. I told them, look here, look at the planning efficiency, and we have got a skylight. And how do you get a skylight in the mid-level? You cannot do that, and the building is deep. Now, if they want to make the building linear and get natural light, okay, you can get courtyards, and to get light there also. But then courtyard to come into the second level. See, in Kuala Lumpur, they have not done that. Kuala Lumpur, they have done it for the first level itself, which I think it is unnecessary. Okay, courtyards may look nice. Okay, then talking about, HVAC, I will tell you one thing what I did in Hyderabad. Martin made a good point about the clean air. Now, what we did in Hyderabad is what we call as a free cooling. What we do when the ambient temperature outside is only 22 degrees or 24 degrees, which happens in Hyderabad, and Hyderabad is arid, and it is not humid also. So what we did was, we had designed the system. During winter, you will have only the AHUs running through filters with a higher air changes. You don't let fresh air come in, because fresh air brings dust also. So I think the system what we used in Hyderabad is far superior in terms of managing the sustainability issue. In fact, we had given a calculation for that during the winter, the chiller plant will be simply shut off. It's only the AHU. And then you have only the air displacement. And then the fan speeds can be adjusted to get about 12 air changes per hour, which is normally recommended as a minimum. 12 to 15 air changes. Now, air conditioning is only 7 air changes per hour. So the AHU has got to be designed with a variable fan. And through filters, I agree with Martin that we should get concerned. See, fresh air is all nice, but then it doesn't, air brings dust inside. And not only that, other kind of impurities. Okay, now courtyard, I was only talking about romantic only in the case of Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur had done it for the sake of doing it. Even Bangalore, first phase. Second phase, I do not know. And the further phases, I do not know. But having courtyards have definitely, there are other ways of achieving sustainability. And leads, I never keep leads as a design goal. Design goal is efficiency. For example, can you get LEED certificate for a hospital? I have tried it. Very difficult. You can't even get bronze, leave alone silver. A hospital can never be designed to meet the goals of leads. Leads, are paranoid. They simply look at their, data. They never care for the functional efficiency of a building. So this is what I meant. But then the way, Noida has come up, okay, fine. It got its own salient features. Even then, I will not have the courage to bring the natural air in.
So Jay, like Martin said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yes.
I would like to walk in that courtyard. I'll tell you one very interesting personal experience about this Noida. So I started my career in Delhi, right? And I worked on the India Habitat Center building.
Yes.
And I realized that when you were walking in that courtyard in India Habitat Center, when the temperature was something like 44 degrees outside, right? That it was about 8 to 9 degrees cooler just under the shade of those buildings in that courtyard. And whatever happened, you were in that air-conditioned space that you were working in, but you wanted to step out and be in that shaded courtyard with the trees and the landscape, etc., etc. So there is a, besides the air conditioning strategy, there is also this aspect of wanting to be, in a particular kind of space. I mean, Ashwini would say that, when you look at something like Bangalore airport, you try to make a garden city. But then what happened was, although, we've been part of that journey, so it's dear to our heart, but whatever Skidmore and the team came up with, it is actually creation of a garden-like environment inside a terminal, but it's not really the essence of the garden, the essence of that nature. Now here, with a business sense, with a technological advancement, and with this idea of going to that next frontier, I think it's a very bold step and it's a very unique step, and I want it to succeed. If there's one thing that I want to succeed, it is this aspect. And Ekta, since you're about daylighting and such things, it's an unfair ask for you to respond to the courtyard at Noida today. But it's interesting, for you, since you're a lighting consultant, to know that this light and HVAC is at the heart of an airport, today. I had Jay, one more thing I wanted to tell you.
I have to say something. I'm inspired by what he said of making the courtyard romantic right now. I'm thinking it's gonna be Uttar Pradesh airport. It's got to reflect Vrindavan, and I'm gonna put some swings there to make it romantic.
No, see, you are talking about India Habitat Center. Have you ever experienced it during Andhi in Delhi? During Andhi in Delhi, Andhi, you know what is Andhi, sandstorm. If you have, if you have sandstorm, you will definitely, there are no sufficient breakers. So that courtyard, during certain part of the year, that way any open space will be, pleasant during certain part of the year. I think when it comes to, I think you got to wait. It's a very, difficult decision. And flow of people, in talking about flow of people, Hyderabad airport was the first one which sort of eliminated the X-ray machines in the lobby. We said straight away you have online X-ray and then you go to the check-in counter. Otherwise there was a queue getting built up. So we made several efforts to improve the flow of the people as smooth as it can. And without hampering that flow, if we can still get a courtyard inside, fine. But then Kuala Lumpur has achieved it at the upper floor level where they could have sorted it out very easily through a skylight. How did they do that? So that's where I'm saying, if you can't get a courtyard at the lower level.
Jay, the danger is that we'll keep talking about this courtyard at the session, right? It's better now we wait till it gets built. We've had this debate, and I believe you me,
Right.
we've had this debate in the design room
Yes.
before presenting it to the client, and then the client has dragged us through coals through the same debate, and afterwards, both parties, after looking at circulation, flow, environment, etc., finding solutions through, an expert consultant who's been working with us, Martin mentioned, have decided that yes, we are going to go ahead because it's worth it, And now, now the main thing is we've got to evaluate what happened. It's a very bold, and this is a small step in that entire investment, but it's an important step. The client had deliberated a lot on it before doing it, and it's all about Ekta, what you are interested in design. So I thought, it's nice for us to touch that subject. Martin, I would like to also talk a little bit about collaboration. How an idea like this can come from anybody, but you need to have that whole team of experts and need to all collaborate to make an idea like this work. It's very easy for ideas to kind of fail for the sake of ignorance or for the sake of not having the right resources to be able to answer a question that the client has asked. And I would like to understand from Martin, how did Nordic put this team together, to design an airport like this? How did you all conceive this team? Who are the different members and what were their different roles?
Yeah, it's a good question because it was a very long process. We knew that the Noida competition was coming up. Initially, we collaborated with GMR in the concession bid period, and the team we had back then was basically the spine of the team that were used for the design competition we got invited to. It was people we had been collaborating with and felt confident with. Our system, Stoop, your team from previous experience at Hyderabad in particular, and also people we had been collaborating with in Istanbul and several other projects. So it's all about sort of network and putting together consultants that we knew would be able to find solutions together. I think that was the main motivation for the team setup. We had a very different setup, I think, from our competitors, because rather than aligning or ally with one large consultant firm like ACOM or VSW or Arup, who could do basically everything in-house. We sort of handpicked expertise from smaller firms.
Yeah, I think Jay, you were the design manager when we did the Hyderabad airport.
Yes.
And you worked with a number of firms at that time.
Yes.
Right? And I think Martin has played a similar role out here,
Yes.
while interacting with the
Yes.
client.
That's right.
So I think it's very interesting that an airport is such a kind of integrated, multidisciplinary
that's right.
project.
Absolutely.
And for
Hyderabad airport, and it was thanks to COVID, thanks to Avia Plan, and our own engineers, and we had a very good very good collaboration. So collaboration should be on the project site along with the client involvement. There's no point in doing collaboration in the design office, or that's not enough. That collaboration is not. I think client participation is very important. And now going to another topic, I'm slightly concerned about this over-enthusiasm in making most of the small airports as international airports. I do not know why they do that, because even in a place like, I think we should come into urban spoke principle, where you have only few international terminals and lot of feeder airlines. Now, I'll give you a case study. Coimbatore has got 3 flights per week international. And then you maintain a big establishment for that, and you put partitions here, there to divide the lobbies, divide the security and all that, making it really a mess. Why this misplaced enthusiasm of making every terminal as an international terminal? Madurai is an international terminal. Somebody wants to make Tuticorin as an international terminal. Somebody wants to make Trichy as all this because of political decisions. The local MPs want to tell the people that I got an international terminal for you. I mean, as though international terminal is a big award. They don't realize that the problems of management. So I think government should put a firm step on this. Government should say that I would like you to respond to this comment of mine.
I mean, I'm in 100% agreement to what you are saying. And it's coming together. Like I said, I think when 2003 the skies opened and India started booming and aviation started booming in India rather, we were not yet fully prepared. But at the same time, I mean, I've worked internationally. I was working in India, I was working in Indonesia, and I've seen such a huge difference between the way Indian aviation has been tackled and how, let's say, Indonesia is tackling their aviation. So India took the bold decision of privatizing 2 of its biggest airports, you know, the hen which is laying the golden eggs basically, right? Mumbai and Delhi. And contrary to what India did, Indonesia decided to start privatization with the 2 of its smallest airport. Miserably failed because of the strategy. So I think Indian aviation started with the right strategy, but we do need a roadmap for the next 50 years, and that's coming. I mean, we now have aviation policy which is looking at this, what you just said, the hub and spoke thing, because I'm in complete agreement on what you just said now, and also what you said earlier about the A380. And I always, as an airport and a representative of the airport, say that the airport is always held at the mercy of the airlines. They decide to change how they want to operate, and they always want the airport to spend the money on the infrastructure. So earlier we used to give them check-in counters. Then they asked us for self-check-in kiosk. So we have to plan as planners and designers and architects another process in the flow. So now you have a self-check-in kiosk and then you go to the counter. I didn't decide this. It was decided by the airlines. Then they decide you should now do self-backdrop. So now they want me to plan another self-backdrop. I come obviously to the designers to plan that, but I'm not deciding that. It's the airline. And after doing everything, they say we will pick your bag from the home. So you understand? It's not really the airports. It is the airline industry who holds the airport at mercy a little bit. So yes, the A380 was a big effort, at the same time a big failure, because Mumbai airport has a huge stand built to handle the A380, because you need 3 passenger boarding bridges to connect to an A380. It's a huge money, it's a huge sum.
And particularly Mumbai, where the area is very tough.
Yeah.
There
is no land at the Mumbai
it's not
airport.
like Delhi. See, Bombay.
It's a land constrained airport.
Tight down land. Very difficult
So
to
I'm
fit in that
agreement.
airport.
I'm in agreement with you. So not all airports should be international airports. They should be thought going into it. And in the end, again, it comes to the same point what I started before. It's every person's taxpayers' money that goes there. So then it shouldn't be politically driven. It should be more strategically driven.
Correct.
Yeah,
I am
I think as
surprised.
we are moving towards more, concessionaire-owned airports, these kind of issues will kind of subside. Those international things will kind of move out.
Yeah.
We did the Sindhudurga airport, which
Yeah.
is called an international airport.
Yeah.
And the concessionaire has taken over. He can't do any international thing with it. So slowly these things will kind of...
Then we pushed them. They said, no, chartered flights will come, this will come. And then they want to take over the tourist traffic to Goa. See, Sindhudurga and Goa are so close. So they want to rob the business from Goa. Such kind of evil intentions, only central government should control, See, aviation.
I have to say, aviation, everything that happens is a response to the context in which we are. We are in this context where every city wants to be recognized for an airport. We are in that context. Soon it will be the the passe, like it will be the norm. Every airport is international, so forget, no more big deal about it. It's just like the LEED certification. Everybody wanted LEED certification, but Noida International Airport, as an airport, we decided that we will not go or seek certification.
Yes.
So even after doing what we are doing on sustainability,
Right.
it's never our
Absolutely.
objective
No,
that
you
we
seek
want
your
to
own
take a
values. So,
certification.
you set your own goals and then you try and reach them. Why should LEED set a goal for you?
So
They
so-
cannot.
So one thing that I'd like to say, I mean, like, we've got to conclude the session now, but I'd like each one of you, and perhaps start with Ashwini, to tell us that what's the next step? What's the future direction? Just give me a few of your thoughts before we move.
One more point I want to mention. Thanks to the consortium of COVI, Aviaplan and STU, Hyderabad Airport, this ATC tower, Abhin explained about Asaruddin's collar and all that. I will tell you another dimension to it. That's the tallest tower in the region next to, Bangkok. I think it's about 65, 70 meters or so. Bangkok is 85. And we mixed all the controls in one tower. That is the area control, airport control, and apron control. Although apron control is outside the purview of the, of the ATC. So we have put a different level for that. One. And then, thanks to, Aviaplan's suggestion, we made that, tower so tall so that even the future runway you can sight. In fact, we have drawn the sight lines for that. What is going to come after 25 years after the, person in airport authority retires? Even that runway will be controlled by this. So you don't have to build another airport.
But
So what I'm saying is that kind of a vision is required.
So I'm going to take where you left it and talk about future in airports. So, sorry to break your heart, but
No.
now I'm working on a theme where there will be no towers in airports. Don't need it anymore.
Correct.
Thanks to
Only
technology.
If you need, only if you need.
No. Of course, we need ATC tower, but what I'm trying to say.
What you'll manage with CCTVs, is that?
So I think when we were doing Navi Mumbai Airport and we came up with the whole master plan. So our MD was like, Ashwini, where's the tower? And how big is the tower? Because it's always like the last airport built it 70 meters, now we build 75. Then it's like the skyscrapers in Middle East. And I was like, there's going to be no tower. He was like, you're going to build an airport, no tower? I was like, no tower. It's a huge amount. Why do you want to spend that amount? I was like, no tower in this airport. He was like, how are we going to manage? I said, first phase, we are doing one runway. We manage the tower from a smaller portion. But by the time the second runway will come, trust me, we are in a remote monitoring position. We will have an ATC tower sitting somewhere, maybe not even at the airport. So that's where India is going, guys. I mean, there's a lot happening in aviation sector that air traffic control tower is working. The whole AI's Airport Authority of India's air traffic control team works on, and there's something called Gagan. So that's one aspect of where airports are going. Second thing, what I'm talking at a master plan level is very fascinating, vertiports.
Yes.
I mean, we are talking about airports now to not have so much big runway requirement, because the minute you need runway, we need land. And where do we have so much land going in future? So we are talking about vertiports. That's one thing. Second thing we are talking about is folding wings of the aircraft, because again, just a little longer route again to connect the fact that, see, Mumbai and Delhi airports, when the concession was written by the government and by the airlines, said that 90% of the passengers coming to this airport should use aero bridge. You never asked, I mean, as users, we never asked, but that's what the concession said. Result, if you walk in Delhi, I mean, when I travel in Delhi, I feel like I'm doing a marathon. I'm like running from the check-in all the way till the gate. It's like that long, 1.5 kilometer walk basically. Why? Because you've got to keep distance between the aircrafts. They have such long wings. How do you accommodate them? And if you want to put 90% of the passengers through these aero bridges, we have to plan those many stands. That results into the master planning, that results into the terminal planning. Of course, it means a lot of square meter of terminal building and money that goes in. So now the airlines are making an aircraft which can fold its wing. So the aircraft can become larger but can still get accommodated in a smaller stand. So that's a new thing that is happening. That's what we are working about. And last but not the least, driverless vehicles. We need to be aware of the pods which are coming in. I think you might have read in Noida, we are already talking about, the government is talking about having pod taxis traveling around. So that's another thing that we have to work with, because all the norms that we know, everything that we know about roads and turning radiuses and all are not meant for driverless pod taxis. So that's a new thing that we are talking about. So vertiports, pods, driverless pods, no ATCs, remote control. These are the things we are working on.
Personally, I do not mind remote parking at all of the aircrafts, because in spite of the coach movement, unnecessarily the aero bridges complicate your life. The fingers become very long, and then it's okay in a climate where there is not friendly, not in tropics. Okay, Europe, yes, it snows. You can't walk from. Okay, security is better when you have when you have an aero bridge. But same with the coach also. So I think there is no need. In fact, again and again I talk about Hyderabad Airport, because there I was out and out involved. Hyderabad Airport was the first one to install the visual docking system for all these aircrafts, instead of this marshalling of these people coming and guiding the aircraft to park. It reduced a lot of manpower and also reduced human error. Right now, then they made this visual docking system in the remote parking also. Earlier it was only attached to the building. Now you can see in many airports, I think Bangalore has got it, Hyderabad has got it, there are posts with a VDS system mounted on it. So what I'm saying is, I think we shouldn't shy away from remote parking. And it makes it very easy.
So I think we are coming to the conclusion of the session. I'm sure if I ask Martin what he thinks is the future direction of airports, we'll need one more day, because he's doing so many more airports now.
Yes, I know.
I mean, for him, he's already, worked on the airport at Noida, and the thought process has started moving to the next, generation of airports that they will be coming up with. So that's how the processes continue. And of course, we've not managed to hear from Ekta about lighting either, So, but we're running short of time. There's another session going to come up.
Yes.
People have to catch flights and see the airports finally.
Yes.
So I think at this session, I'd like to thank Martin, Ekta, fantastic Ashwini, and Jay, always evergreen. So all of you all for an invigorating session. And it only goes to show that if we were able to pull 3.5 hours of airports, like this, continuously through lunchtime, that this kind of merits a longer session, more focused and more structured. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abhin, for
Thank you,
beautifully moderating this session, and not only that, for your own presentation.
Thank you.